Hi, guys, and welcome to Prime Rewind. We're in the pilot episode, I should say, of Prime Rewind. And what this is actually Matt Hanley. You can see Matt Hanley now if you're watching the video of this. Matt Hanley reached out to me and came up with the idea of doing some watch alongs of some classic NBA games. And I thought, well, why not do it with a guest as well? Because you don't want to hear my voice for 2 hours. So, considering it was his idea, he really couldn't say no when I invited him to come along and do it. And before he knew it, we had a list of about 15 games that we wanted to do. But game one of the 95 finals, I thought was interesting because you had the matchup in the middle was so enthralling because you had Hakeem Olajuwon and you had Shaq and you had the six-seeded Rockets up against the number one seed in the East, Magic, David versus Goliath. I wouldn't go that far, but it's still a hell of a matchup. So we're going to get into that. Settle in. If you're listening to this on the podcast and you're not watching the video, the link will be in the show notes. So in a moment, I'll be doing a countdown of 3, 2, 1, and then press play. That's when you'll press play, and you'll be able to see exactly what we're talking about as we're watching this footage. But before I go any further, I haven't even introduced him. Matt, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, Matt. Fortunately, we have the same first name, so easy to remember.
Yes. But this is your idea. Tell the audience how you came up with this idea.
Oh, I don't know. It's just a brainwave out of nowhere. We all remember the days, or at least I do. I assume you do, of going out to the pub with friends and watching the game. Watching a playoff game or whatever. It was a big to do. The game's there, your buddies are there, you got some drinks, some hot wings, whatever the case may be, and you just got it all going on. Yeah, there you go. It's all happening, It's just like you got everything right there. You got the game, you got beer, you got food, you got your buddies. I mean, yeah, it's a pretty good time, and I personally don't do that anymore, considering I have a family and all. So I just thought, well, geez, that was kind of fun.
You have a family. I came down to Sydney quite a few times, or when I was in Sydney, we would go to the casino and we would watch big games. I remember Game 7 of the NBA Finals. I think it was the Spurs and the Miami Heat. We watched that game. We watched
2014.
2013. 2014 was the demolishment job. 2013 was the 7-game series.
Oh, I thought, because I remember we watched Game 2 of 2014.
That was with Morris and those guys. That was an interesting game. That was the tanks and armies situation. Yeah,
yeah.
I'm sure we'll get into commentary. But it's been a minute, so I'm at 0 seconds. You're at 0 seconds. If you're fully loaded with this video, then by all means be ready. If not, pause it until you are loaded, and then get ready to press play in 3, 2, 1, and go. And to begin, we've got Olajuwon. Man, wasn't he a beast? Like, I was doing a little bit of research. Now, you've seen this game before, I'm assuming, when you were younger.
Long time ago.
Yeah, so we're both. This is both fresh to both of us. In the past, I've seen the highlights of this, so I know how this kind of goes. And we see Shaq talking right now, so it's probably bad lip reading if you're listening to this. But the fact remains that this is fresh to us as well. Yes. So I wanted to, as you said, you wanted to create the bar experience. One of the great things about the bar experience is you don't know what's happening because it's typically a live game. So I wanted to recreate that as much as possible. And yeah,
and talk about the game, I mean, there's so much at stake here, really. I mean, you got Orlando, who just knocked off the Bulls with Michael Jordan. This is the ascendant team. Everybody at the time believes this is the team of the future. Like, they got a new dynasty here. Jordan's retired.
I'm glad you said that. I'm glad you said it was a new dynasty, because usually when you see teams and they label team of the future, the expectations are just, well, maybe they'll win a championship. This team was actually considered, as you see the banner in the background, they were actually considered to be, without, unless injuries would happen, they were a lock for a dynasty. 3 or 4 titles was the expectation for this
Well,
team.
they had it all. They got Penny, they got Shaq. That's a great two-man combo. You
And they
got a bunch
complemented
of
with shooters and score.
complementary players. Like I was thinking today about just Horace Grant as a perfect counterpoint to Shaq. Shaq's this big, demanding dude in the middle, big dominant.
Can't shoot
You
foul
know,
shots as we see in practicing.
no, definitely not his forte. But you got Horace Grant, and you could put Horace up. Well, he's going to play defense. He's going to hit outside shots. He's going to rebound. He's going to do everything you want for someone, and he's not going to take space away from Shaq. So this was a team that was well set up.
Yeah, he provided spacing for Shaq.
Absolutely.
But speaking of spacing and Shaq, and this is what makes me want to pull my hair out when I look back at Shaq's career. You look at a guy like Penny Hardaway, 6'9", uber athletic, right? Very nimble on his feet, explosive jumper, a quick jumper. But his post game was very, very good. Now, I don't know who actually guards him in this series, whether it's Mario Early or if it's Kenny Smith. But if it's Kenny Smith, a lot of the blame for this loss, obviously we know who wins this series, has to go on the feet of Shaq. And what I'll say by that, his production was great. But if Shaq was able to, if he had a 15-foot jump shot, he would be able to space out for Penny. But because he was so restricted to being 10 feet from the basket, there's no room to operate for Penny Hardaway up against a smaller defender.
Well, you're actually reminding me of a Stephen A. quote here.
Oh, God.
We know who he is. He is who he is. Like,
wait, wasn't that what was it? The coach of the Arizona Cardinals, Carter, what was it, Butch Carter or something like that? Where after the Bears won, we know who they thought they were. They are who we thought we are, and we gave him the game. Remember that?
Yeah, vaguely.
Okay,
it's been a while.
Let's avoid Stephen A. on this show.
Well, I'm just saying, like, Shaq is a fixed quantity. This is what he does, and he's not. One of the issues I've always had, we've probably gone into this before, but I think Shaq always figured he could just dominate on his own physical talent, and he never went and did anything really to improve his game. He didn't like to come out of the paint on defense. He didn't like to get out of the paint on offense either. That's who he was, and he didn't really. And maybe that was for the best. I mean, it's debatable. He was dominant, but like you mentioned, in certain matchups, it wouldn't hurt to get Penny down there or take advantage.
If you got Sam Cassell on you, why not?
And Shaq never ran pick and roll. I mean, Shaq was he's great at what he did. He did
look at these stats. If I could just interrupt you, look at these stats for a larger one. 33 points, 10 rebounds. My goodness, the shooting percentage. And keep in mind who he was going up against. Karl Malone. He was going up against David Robinson. That's insane. Anyway,
he went
continue.
Up against the best competition of the best. Like, literally, this man destroyed his closest competitors on the way to a championship. I mean, what a show. It's just incredible what he did.
Oh, there's a steal from Jordan. Oh, on Jordan, sorry. Yeah. I guess they're highlighting Nick Anderson, which is an unfortunate omen if you know what happens in this game. The thing about what you're saying about Shaq has so much credit, though, because what you say is Shaq was great, and obviously you don't want to take away what he does best. You want to force teams to adjust. But what happens if he's not able to tear up that matchup? Like when he's going up against a Dennis Rodman or he's going up against an Hakeem Olajuwon, who they are
Ben
willing.
Wallace.
Oh, yeah, of course, Ben Wallace.
He was older at that point, but yes.
Oh, well, he wasn't that far out of his prime. Remember, in 2004, that was only a couple of years out of him winning championships too. So it's almost identical, like on the other side of it. But the fact remains, when there's a player willing to actually put their body on the line and make things difficult for Shaq, if you have an advantage elsewhere, whether it's Kobe Bryant or Dwayne Wade or Penny Hardaway, it's hard for them to actually get to where they could exploit that matchup.
Yeah, well, let's say if he wanted to run like pick and roll, Shaq's not really going to do that.
No.
Like he's going to do what he's going to do, He'll clean up the mess. He'll get his post moves down. He'll dominate down low. But like you said, you put down those scrappers who will deny him, and it does take away that advantage. It's happened many times during his career. You can't always go to the well. That he goes to the
that's
well
it, because
over and over again.
Eventually you'll come across, as I said, Hakeem Olajuwon's, Dennis Rodman's, Ben Wallace. What do they all have in common? NBA champions. You'll come across those players that will be willing to pay that price, will be willing to sacrifice their body and take that physical punishment. And the same thing, honestly, the same thing goes for LeBron James. And I don't want to turn this into LeBron or anything, but LeBron, if he was able to adapt his game to Dwayne Wade or Kyrie Irving better, who knows how much they would have won, instead of turning him into jump shooters. But here you see Clyde Drexler.
Yes, that's true.
The interesting thing about Drexler is how badly his career fell off the cliff after what Jordan did to him in '92, and
the Olympics.
Yeah, the Olympics too.
I mean, that was behind closed doors.
Sure, but Jordan did that to everybody back then. But the thing that strikes me as really odd when you look at this Houston Rockets team is obviously they made a trade of Otis Thorpe, who wasn't a bad player, but he's definitely not Hall of Fame worthy or anything like that, MVP consideration like Drexler was. And you saw Houston was actually the team that needed to have their arm twisted to make that deal, which is always weird because Drexler, he wanted to go to Houston. I'm not sure if Portland wanted to trade him specifically to Houston out of respect for everything he did for Portland. However, the fact that the Rockets needed to have their arm twisted to make the trade of Drexler for Otis Thorpe, when I looked at this '95 Rockets team, and that worked out perfectly for him because it opened up Robert Horry. We talked about spacing. It opened up Robert Horry playing the 4, and Mario Elie was now given legitimate minutes as well. And
didn't Mad Max kind of lose the plot in there?
He did. Yeah. What they tried to do for most of the year, and this is why they struggled until the playoffs, they tried to run with 3 guards. They tried to have either Cassell or Kenny Smith running the point, and they tried to play both Clyde Drexler. Drexler was playing the 3, and Vernon Maxwell playing the 2. And there just wasn't enough shots to go around, especially with... See, Vernon Maxwell was never known for his consistent scoring. Like, there were games where he shot terribly. I think he has the worst field goal percentage after X amount of field goals from the guard position.
Yeah, he's sub 40%.
Yeah, that's what I mean. That's insanely bad. Now, he did other things very well, and it was kind of like John Starks in the way that he could deliver in big games and big moments. However, you don't want to be relying on him.
Yeah,
but he
very
felt
inconsistent.
Now, what he felt in his mind was, you guys won with me, therefore I'm better than Drexler. Clearly he wasn't.
Right.
And then after game 1 against Utah, which they barely lost, Olajuwon had a massive game in the first round. Vernon Maxwell pretty much stormed off.
Yeah.
And then I believe the Rockets deactivated him for the rest of the playoffs. And that's when they moved Drexler back to the shooting guard position, and Mario Elie, that we see 3 championship rings of the Bulls. I don't know what they're talking about there. And there's
maybe it's Horace.
Yeah, probably. But he probably brought them along, and that's something we got to talk about too, is the lack of experience factor. But there's a young Hannah Storm. People forget that she started out doing NBA on NBC games, and I thought she was one of the better courtside announcers, up with Amar Bashad, obviously. But yeah, that opened up the game with Vernon Maxwell going to the wherever he went, because even though they were a little bit questionable when it came to depth at that point, their starting 5 or starting 6, because obviously Cassell and Kenny Smith were interchangeable, but that core was so versatile. And then we see Kenny Smith now, Robert Horry, and it's surrounded Olajuwon with such incredible shooting that without any question in my mind, that 95 team, even if you took Drexler off that team and put him Mario Elie, the fact that Horry is now playing the power forward position and Elie is getting minutes there, I think the 95 team is far superior.
Well, it's they're an interesting squad, and they're sort of ahead of their time. Like I think
Yeah,
they
yeah,
would
that's a good
compete
point.
very well for today's game, like being more spread, and
Hmm.
you got a big guy down low he'd be getting single coverage, and this guy was dominating in the era. Like we'll see it against Shaq. Imagine Olajuwon in today's game
Oh
where
my
he's going to
god.
be single
Oh my
covered.
god. Imagine Shaq in today's game. Yeah, but oh my god.
Yeah, well, there would be very few people who could just go toe to toe with Shaq. You know, he's just such a load, like just incredible.
But you see right there, they went right to Elijah and they tried to
Yeah.
establish that because that matchup in the middle, and you saw the Orlando Magic, and they went right back
Oh,
to they did the exact same thing. But you saw
yes.
the Magic completely collapse on Elijah one. You didn't really see that with them with Elijah one though. The Rockets seemed comfortable with, at least early on, with Elijah one in single coverage. Now let's see if they do go right back to him. But there you
Well,
go.
they had
And
a
that's
good
the
game
yeah.
plan, which was to get the ball into Hakeem. He was their money maker, but he was such a good passer, and we see him hitting the open man for the three right there. I
Yeah,
mean, that's what he does. He's if we talked earlier about Shaq being who he is. I think Olajuwon is one of the most versatile big men we've ever seen in the game. The
I think
guy
he
can
is the
do
most versatile.
everything.
The only other guy you could maybe say is Wilt.
Well, Wilt couldn't shoot free throws very well. Maybe he picks that up, but
Yeah.
just as far as Akeem had an outside shot, he could run pick and roll. He could pretty much be the main big man on defense. I mean, he just to me he's my favorite center of all time.
What the play we just saw then was a perfect example of what I was talking about earlier, where we saw Kenny Smith guarding Penny Hardaway, and that's a matchup immediately. So
Yeah.
they tried posting up Penny Hardaway, but Shaq was on the block on the other side of the lane. So Penny could not just go straight to the front of the rim because otherwise he's meeting Elijah one. And
Right.
now if Shaq was extended out to say 15 feet along the baseline, that's not an option because illegal defense back there. You had to stay with your man.
Right.
But
Well,
no, I'm not going to dispute that Elijah one was the most versatile player of all time. The only thing I would say is I don't think he was, and
big
allow me
man,
to preface this.
most
I don't.
versatile big man.
Yeah.
That's what I would say.
Yeah. That's what I was responding to. Excuse me. But the thing that I think Wilt was a lot better at was actually distributing the ball. That's not to say that Elijah one was bad at distributing the ball. It's just Wilt was on another level with that kind of stuff. Boy,
Yeah,
that's a weird looking shot from Drexler. I know that's
that's how he
consistent for him.
shoots that
I know the
little
leg
hop.
kicking is like it's
Yeah.
like he's trying to propel himself an extra couple of inches when he's up in the air. And then you see Horace
Yes.
Grant. They're going to Horace Grant quite a bit early on too. It's
Well,
very interesting.
I
We've
think
talked about the
Horry's
super team.
guarding him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Horry was a great defender too, but he wasn't a real good post defender. He was an excellent shot
No.
blocker, especially coming from the weak side.
Yeah, he's a good help defender, but he's especially when he was younger, he just didn't have the bulk to
Mm.
handle the true as we see there. But he made up for it on the other end with his
Oh yeah,
versatility.
yeah.
You know, I mean, the guy is one of the greatest role players of all time. I mean, he's actually yeah. I mean, look how many teams he helped win. The Lakers, obviously this Rockets, the Spurs. I mean, the guy is he's what you need coming off the bench or as your fourth or fifth starter. Just what a complete player he was.
At this time, though, see, when I wrote the book about NBA's greatest teams, I did quite a bit of research on the Rockets because they made it quite far into it. And
This team right here.
yeah, the 95 Rockets. I had them winning their first round matchup up against the 72 Lakers. And who did they go on to play after that? I can't remember. I should know because I wrote the book. Oh, yeah, then they lost to the Bulls. Excuse me.
Which Bulls?
Oh, no, not the Bulls. Sorry. They lost to the 2001 Lakers. But the point that I was going to make is Robert Horry at this time, he wasn't looking like a role player. He looked like an emerging superstar. And then
Yeah,
you
he
see
would have been like
Elijah
a
one taking the
third
charge on
player.
Shaq. Yeah, but he looked like his ceiling was much higher than just being a role player.
Yeah, going to
'Cause-
Phoenix hurt.
Yeah,
That
and then
trade.
you see Elijah one. Now Elijah one's starting to settle in and going head to head against Shaq. We're yet to see really anything from Shaq effective. And you mentioned earlier about how Orlando was looking like a team ready to be a dynasty, and you said all the pieces were there, but they had such a good veteran mix. You had the budding superstars. I mean, I compared Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons last year to a young Shaq and Penny, but when you look at what Orlando had around, they brought it. They had Nick Anderson, who was a prolific scorer for much of his early career. Dennis Scott was emerging as a great shooter. Brian
Yeah.
Shaw was coming off the bench, was a great shooter. And
And
then
all those guys were drafted by that team. I mean,
was Brian Shaw drafted by Orlando? I thought he was in Miami.
I think it was. Well, I mean, we
Oh,
could look it up.
it's Florida. It all counts. But the thing is, the addition of Horace Grant put them over the top too. And it
Oh, absolutely.
Would have been interesting to see if they weren't successful in getting Horace Grant, what they would have done. Could they have moved Penny Hardaway to play the 4 at times with Brian Shaw playing the point?
Well, I don't know. That's kind of a tough. You'd have to. Who could he do that against? Not any starting power forwards, because he'd get pummeled on the defensive end.
Right.
I mean, maybe against some guys off the bench, specific matchups, but
I don't mean
I
to
wouldn't
start.
want to do that.
Yeah, I don't mean to start. I mean, just like in certain situations, could they have played him? 6 foot. He was 6'9", man, 6'8", 6'9". He could probably play even back in the 90s. He was a bit. I get what you're saying. He didn't have the strength behind him, but Robert Horry, he doesn't look like he had the whole lot of strength. You see Scott bearing it.
Right. Well, yeah,
And,
Horry was more like a 3, like a true 3, maybe a tweener. Approaching
that's a word you
4.
don't hear too much. Is that considered offensive these days to call somebody a tweener?
Oh, between a small forward and a power forward, or between positions. But
yeah. So it's interesting. Now,
loading lineup.
Yeah, what I wanted to ask you is, I mean,
who was that? Was that Ellie?
Yeah, I think so. And there's Penny back the other way. Boy, Orlando's running them out of the gym right now. And I remember reading a quote or hearing a quote from Kenny Smith that during this game they were like, "Hold on a second, we didn't realize these guys were that good." And prior to the game, I was looking at some of the body language of the Houston Rockets. They seemed very calm. I wonder if early on they kind of felt like, "Hey, yeah, that was Ellie." If early on they felt like, "Oh my goodness, just lay it in." What do they call that? A flat tire? Oh, Tom Jonovich. I miss Tom Jonovich. Yeah. I love his reactions. Right? Never underestimate the heart of a champion.
Yeah, that sums it up.
But I wonder if, because obviously what happens here is Orlando jumps out to a big lead in the first half. I wonder if they sort of felt like their championship series was against the Suns, was against the Jazz, and up against, obviously, the San Antonio Spurs, that they felt that this was almost a foregone conclusion based off those teams that they had won against already.
Oh, it's possible. I mean, I would... it also could have been just a case of the nerves, potentially. I think maybe it was just... they just got off to a bad start. It happens. Oh, Penny with a nice slice.
But see how effective they are when they actually went to a pick and roll, and Olajuwon, for whatever reason, didn't step up and he stayed with Shaq. Shaq's not going to shoot that 15-footer. Oh. Usually in those situations, you would see Olajuwon stick with the ball handler very, very well.
Yeah. Well, I guess it's tough when Shaq does set that pick to get around it. He's a big body.
Oh, but Olajuwon doesn't have to deal with that. Olajuwon's guarding Shaq, though. Like the ball handler, the guy.
Oh, that's right. Slide off and cut off the paint. Sure.
Boy, Penny's just tearing him up. What a great pass that was. Did you see that when midair?
Oh, yeah.
It dished it to Grant. That was beautiful.
He was a special player, man. Just quick, great vision. He could do it. He could do it all. Just
good defender too. You just saw that, even though they called the foul. So the question I wanted to bring up to you though is, I mentioned this recently, and I think we had talked about this off the air a couple of days ago. Is what would have happened had Jordan not retired and they actually? Well, that's a hell of a pass. I'm sorry, that was left-handed, mid-air. He caught that mid-air
touch.
Shaq dished it out to Penny as he was cutting. It was a little bit off. Penny had to catch it left-handed, and oh my goodness, that looked like a Shaq foul shot from Olajuwon. And that was a hell of a pass.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah,
yeah,
it's
but
outstanding.
yeah, but so what do you think would have happened if Jordan hadn't retired and the Bulls had ended up playing the Orlando Magic in both '94 and '95?
Well, I mean that presupposes, and I mentioned this at the time, that to me the only reason why Jordan retired is because his father was murdered,
Hmm.
and that would take put everything into perspective. A moment like that, at the end of the day, it's still just a game.
Yes.
But and I'm sure Jordan would have been happy to keep on going and dominating, but once you get that news, it's just like, and I gotta, what am I doing? Like, what, you just, if it was me, I'd have to reevaluate everything. So I'm sure that's what Jordan did. If that
Yeah.
never happened, if Jordan's father, I don't know, whatever, if it was payback for a bet gone bad, I don't,
Don't say that.
whatever.
I don't know where that has come from lately, but don't
But
say that.
that's the one of the I guess theories that are promoted. But assuming that moment, that tragedy didn't happen, Jordan would have just kept going, and that squad, they definitely would have beaten this Magic. There's no doubt
Oh,
about it.
there's no question about that. They damn near beat. They should have beaten them in '95.
Yeah,
If Jordan didn't
absolutely.
have that turnover, they would have run off
Yes,
the first two games against Orlando in Orlando,
right.
which is what we actually see Houston doing. So it could be done, and Chicago very nearly did it in the second round.
Right. So you've
I
got, I figured, let's see here. So 94, that was the Rockets again, and
Yeah,
they played what, the Knicks, right?
yes, that's correct. Yeah,
And was that like the low seed? What was the Knicks seed that year? It was pretty low,
I
as I
think the Knicks
recall.
were the number two seed. I think Atlanta was the number one seed, and they lost to Indiana in the second round. But yeah, I'm pretty sure the Hawks were the number one seed that year.
Okay.
But
Well, that's quite likely. I would.
keep in mind that the '94 Bulls without Jordan very nearly beat the '94 Knicks.
Yes,
Keep that in mind
absolutely.
too.
Was that the foul call? They called a
Yeah,
foul on
there was a lot that
Pippen
went on in
on
that
Trent
series.
Tucker.
Yeah, that was the series that Pippen refused to enter the game. Tony Kukoc made
Hmm,
it. Yeah, the phantom foul call in Game 5, the
right.
Pippen dunk on Ewing in Game 6. A lot happened in that series.
Right. No, that's a very competitive series. So yeah, just imagine. I would put my money on Jordan in pretty much any game or series that he plays in. So
But what about
I think,
Olajuwon? Let's see. This is what's interesting because as I'm writing the book about Jordan, if these two teams were made in a playoff series, Olajuwon at this period was the best big game player without question during
oh,
94 and 95 with
right,
Jordan's absence.
right.
So if you're going to match him with anybody who can potentially match him in a big game situation, now I know they're not guarding each other, but they
Yes.
can potentially match
Well,
them.
that's very true. I mean, you could theoretically see two guys who can't guard each other dominating
Hmm.
their, for their respective teams, and that could have been maybe one of the greatest exhibits of basketball ever. Jordan would tear up whoever. I don't think there was anybody on the Rockets who could guard him, and the same could be said. The Bulls, they got 18 fouls, with a bunch of stiffs. I mean,
But
Cartwright and
Olajuwon could
what's
shoot his foul shots.
yes. Well, was Cartwright still?
Yeah, that was his last season. That was Bill Carter. What do you call him? Buckwild Bill.
Yeah, buddy of mine.
And
That was
Longley
his
was
name
on that
for him.
team too. So Longley was on that team as well.
That was
Yeah.
their advantage. Those Bulls squads. Every time they went up a big against the big guys, they just had 18 fouls to give. And that's a pretty effective strategy. So I think I still think Jordan wins it. Jordan was just unreal. Olajuwon would do great, but I mean, he really relied heavily on Olajuwon. His teammates came up huge. So
Yeah.
you're
Well, that's
you're
a sign of a great leader, though, and great management. You enable your teammates to believe that they can do it, not this micromanagement nonsense where if a player is struggling, then the rest of them look clueless. Um, I'm with you. I think in '94, especially with the additions that the Bulls made, they brought in Tony Kukoc, obviously. They brought in Steve Kerr. They brought in Luke Longley. They still had B.J. Armstrong, who ended up being an all-star. They still had Pippen, obviously. They still had Horace Grant. They still had Bill Cartwright. They still had John Paxson. There was a lot of shooting there. That team, I think they would have ripped through the playoffs, maybe better than any other Bulls team up until that point. Maybe the 91 team. I think they would have been more
Yeah.
effective than in 92 and 93, because you take into account that the Bulls, without Jordan, very nearly beat the Knicks. And had they beaten the Knicks, I'm pretty sure they would have gone to the finals. So you add Jordan to the mix, my God, how dominant would they have been?
I know. I think it would have just been. I think he would have put them over the top.
Easily.
Yeah.
But in 95,
yeah, we're looking at another 2 more championships, more than likely. I'd say better than 50%.
Here's what I would like to add, though. But I'm not quite sure I would give them the 95 championship, though. Because, as I said before, the Rockets, once they added Drexler, they were a better team. And Vernon Maxwell hit the showers, essentially, and never came back. Once that opened up, I think this 95 Rockets team, was a lot better. They were a lot more balanced, and they present a lot more headaches for the Bulls. And also, if Horace Grant ends up leaving, I'm not sure if he would or not. Who knows? But maybe he wants to get, the respect and adulation elsewhere. He thinks that if he goes to Orlando and they're able to knock off the Bulls, then maybe, just maybe, he's the one that's going to be accredited to that, to those, given a much bigger piece of the credit for the 4 titles that they would have won up until that point. So you take out Horace Grant, you add Clyde Drexler, and all of a sudden that becomes a hell of a series.
Against this series here in the finals?
No,
against Orlando.
The hypothetical. So if the Bulls in 95 had met this Houston Rockets team from 95.
Well, I'll tell you what, this Rockets team is very confident. They're very composed, and they could have been potentially the best opponent that the Bulls ever faced. Potentially, you could make that argument.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you look at what this team, they're down. We know that they face a large deficit in the first half, and they just keep playing their game. They just they don't get down on themselves. They just keep playing. Shots start to fall. I think that they would be the strongest, most mentally tough team that the Bulls ever faced. You can make that argument. I'm with you on
that. Yeah, I'm with you on that. The counter to all this, though, is had the Bulls played them in the 94 finals, with the exception of Utah later on, we never saw any team go back to the finals after the Bulls took care of them. We never saw that. And that's why I think Utah...
What about the Jazz?
Well, I said with the exception of Utah later on. But up until this point, say 95 in this hypothetical, we hadn't seen that. We saw the Lakers, obviously, with Magic contracting HIV. And then you saw Portland just becoming a shell of themselves. You saw Phoenix. They never got back to the finals. Then, who's to say that the Rockets would not have suffered the same fate? So, I mean, it's a great hypothetical, but as I said to you in that conversation as well, it's interesting to think that the only thing that stopped Jordan from really winning 8 or 9 titles in a row was his father being murdered and bad management from the Bulls that almost seemed to be sabotaging them because they wanted to rebuild prematurely.
Yeah. Tim Floyd, as I recall. I think there must have been
what the hell, man? And trading Scottie Pippen for, sign a trade deal. They had no interest in re-signing him. But the point was, I get of course, there are things bigger than basketball, such as your father passing away or being murdered. It's not just passing away, but being murdered. But that being said, both of those things were off the court stuff. So off the court things prevented the Bulls from winning 9 or 8 titles in a row, potentially 10. Who knows where they could have finished up? And there was a quote from Bill Russell, and he was talking about how after the Bulls had won their 3rd straight title, he was on the golf course with Michael Jordan. So a lot of people say that Jordan retired to go play baseball, or he was ducking Kareem. You and I both accept that it was because of his father being murdered.
That's just patently false. This is from people who don't understand that they they just either they don't know or
Well, I
they're
think they're trying to bring
ignorant.
Jordan down a bit. They're trying to make out that he quit the game. But Bill Russell was quoted when in an interview. Sorry, I'm trying to remember what he said verbatim. But Bill Russell said, "Oh well." Bill Russell said that after they had won their third title.
Check that out. Sorry, Hakeem, 10 points to 2 for Shaq. Two
Yeah,
fouls for
Shaq's
Shaq.
in a bit of foul trouble. I'm not sure if you noticed there too. Horace Grant was guarding him for a lot of those points. Look at that! Look at that lead though, with Shaq's ineffectiveness,
Yeah,
and Orlando is still
11-point lead.
yeah.
Yes, that's
But
looking
anyway,
really strong.
the point that especially defensively, and that's with Olajuwon playing well. Olajuwon's got more than half their points. The thing I wanted to mention though, Bill Russell said after the Bulls had won their '93 championship and Paxson hit their shot, they were playing golf together, and Jordan says to Russell, he says, we're going to come after your record. And Russell, Russell being the smart ass that he is, said, which one? And he said,
Good question.
yeah, I know, because I love the wit of Bill Russell, because he's right. Are they going after the 11th title, or are they going after the 8th straight? Both are records that you may never ever see touched again. And quite honestly, the best chance we got to see a team going close was this Bulls team. But had Jordan made up in his mind that he was going to go play baseball, he would not have said that to Bill Russell. Hey, we're coming after your record. He
That's
was
right.
he was determined to go after that record. It was just, it took the wind out of his sails, as it would with
Yeah.
anybody. I mean, anybody that that loves a family member should be able to have some kind of empathy for the fact that his father was murdered, and he needed that sabbatical.
Did you see that pass out by Shaq there?
Yeah, I did see that. Shaq's a very good passer, but he looks so awkward when he's making those bounce passes. I'm not sure what it is.
Oof,
Who was that?
nice
Was that
drive.
Drexler? That was Drexler
Yeah.
taking it right at Shaq. And I think Drexler realized it's time for him to get going a little bit too.
Yes.
But the whole Jordan thing, that is very interesting as to how far they could have gone. I think they would have beaten the '99 Spurs as well. And the reason I say that is the '99 Spurs, they went 15-2 in the playoffs. That was a lockout year. But how are you going to stop Jordan? Are you going to have an old Mario Elliott on him? And the other side
Avery
of that,
Bradley.
Oh, Avery Johnson, you mean?
No, him.
Yeah,
The other
But the other side of it too is obviously the Spurs would have a major advantage up front, but with Duncan and Robinson. But what good is that if you can't get the ball over half court?
Exactly.
And Avery
That's the
Johnson
thing.
was pretty much their only ball handler. I think Antonio Daniels, who was a second-year player, but if you're going to trust him in that situation, that's putting a lot of pressure on him. And you're going up against Jordan, Pippen, Harper, Randy Brown, those guys that could just defend in that press. They're just incredibly gifted. And if nothing else, even if they don't force that turnover, the Spurs are then starting their offense at, 14 seconds, because you had 10 seconds to get over the half court at that stage, at 14 seconds. And that's not even getting the ball into either Duncan or Robinson. So, theoretically, every single possession, you single digits on the. Whoa, was that Horry?
That's
that
old
was
E. Yeah.
Yeah. But now you're starting to see and this is leading into this series. I'm pretty sure nobody expected the speed of the Rockets to play a factor. They probably felt like, hey, Shaq, Penny, they're younger, more athletic. But the guys like Drexler, the guys like Robert Horry, Sam Cassell, that speed they had on the perimeter really made a big difference.
Yeah, speed and versatility that they were, and just just think of what they overcame to be here. I mean, you wouldn't. It doesn't scream championship that one of your starters gets essentially cut from the team after game one.
I know, right? It's not a good start.
No, it's a terrible. This is pretty much the opposite. So these guys, they went through. Have you seen Shawshank Redemption?
Yes.
They went through shit and came up smelling like a rose. That's what they've done here.
When you look back at, it's probably the most improbable sporting runs you'll ever see in your life, because I wrote about this recently. In the first two rounds in the '95 playoffs, keep in mind that the first round was only best out of 5. So the maximum games you can play in the first round is 5. Out of 12 games that they played in the first round, nearly half of them, 5 out of 12 games, were elimination games that they had to win because they were down 2-1 to Utah. So there's 2 elimination games there, and they were down 3-1 against Phoenix. Think about that. Nearly half of those games, and those are games that they must win every single one of those because otherwise they're out. So
no margin for error whatsoever.
Absolutely, and the fact that and 2 of those games were in Phoenix, and 1 of those games was in Utah. So more than half of those games were on the road. I mean, that's why I'm saying that, man. If they were to play, we all know.
Hey, look, there's Olajuwon on the perimeter. Did you see that?
Yeah, he put up a little crossover. But once they spread them out, what you said is 100% right, Matt. If any team, you can make an argument for any team having. Oh my God!
What a beast!
I'll let you describe that one.
That's just pure.
Was that Shaq and was that Brian Shaw throwing that? Didn't they?
I think it was Brian Shaw.
Didn't they call their connection the Shaw Shaq?
Yes, they did.
So, well, anyway, but if any team, you can make an argument for any team having a seamless transition into today's game. Wow, Shaq again, man.
He's a load in the post.
Yeah, when he imposes his strength on somebody, this is a great replay of that.
Just big, oof.
Right on Olajuwon as well. And that's a beautiful, because when he leans on you, you have to put all your body weight. So even somebody's nimble.
This guy's like 320 pounds, or I don't know. When he was younger, he probably wasn't that heavy, but just definitely massive.
Yeah. And you start to see him get into a little bit of a rhythm. It's funny how he gets into a rhythm, and now you see Olajuwon go to the bench. It's funny how you see him get into a rhythm from a play like that with dunking the ball. But if I can finish my point, though, what you said is 100% right about the Rockets. If there's any team, any former champion team that could translate in today's game seamlessly, it's this Rockets team.
Yeah, and they are just unflappable.
Was that Drexler? That was Drexler as well. So now you're starting to see the offense run through Drexler. And
I'm just wondering, so who's that trying to cover Shaq?
I think that's Chucky Brown. Is that Chucky Brown?
I can't quite make it out. Might be.
Yeah, the footage is unfortunately, mid-90s, you don't always get great quality footage. I'm pretty sure
I'd love to get some good quality footage here, because
whatever happened to the NBA? I remember the NBA saying that they were going to start like a Vault subscription service where all the games would be available. And when that never came through, that was about 10 years ago. I remember them saying something.
Sort of like what the WWF did.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I mean, I'd pay for that. I would get that over the NBA League Pass right now. NBA League Pass, man. I never use that.
Very true. Yeah, I like how Clyde is just, stepping in, doing the savvy veteran move, posting his man up, this young Bowie here. Just...
Sam Bowie? No. What was his name? Anthony?
Yeah, I think it was Anthony, right? Yeah. Have to look it up.
But I think it's a testament of Olajuwon, though, that because we mentioned Sam Bowie. Obviously, we've talked about Jordan a bit here too.
Yes.
But it's a testament to Olajuwon that nobody's ever criticized Houston for making, because they had the first pick in the draft, so they passed over them too. Nobody's ever criticized that. And obviously, maybe it's easier to criticize the Blazers because they got nothing out of Bowie, but the Rockets, man, you can make an argument that if you put Jordan, Jordan did get Phil Jackson, Jordan did get Scottie Pippen. Those players obviously helped him. If Jordan went to Houston instead, then who knows how successful he would have been. But he would have had Ralph Sampson early on too, and maybe that would have been something to behold. Sam Cassell's very emotional. And it's funny. Have you ever heard Sam Cassell talk?
I have not.
Oh, well.
Not that I can think of for the last 10 years.
He mumbles a lot. So, I wonder how he actually has conversations with the with the
Is this recently, or maybe has he? I don't know. Is that something he might have improved upon? Because as a coach, I don't know.
I watched a DVD called I think it's called The Foundation, and it had Kevin Garnett talking about it. He's talking about his teammates, and it showed Sam Cassell, and Sam Cassell Yeah,
Oh, I could
that's
see why he's a
he
bit
barreled right
pissed off
into him.
about that.
But you can't just barrel into someone like that.
Yeah, well, but it's not like Horace Grant was set either.
I don't think you need to be set, do you?
Yeah,
You
I
don't
mean,
always need to be set for a
I don't
charge.
know. That probably would have been a good no call, to be honest
Yeah, I
with
know.
you.
I agree with you that. Boy,
Oof.
the athleticism when they run, when the Rockets run, especially with Drexler, with the version with Drexler and Horry on the wings, that is a tough cover.
Yeah.
And I notice you see
Horry
that with
was
Sam
amazing.
Cassell a lot more, and then as opposed to Kenny Smith. Kenny Smith would slow it down, but just the athleticism, man.
Yeah.
Look,
Uh,
he
he
nearly dunked that
was
too. He
he
had
was so good. I had a chance to see him in college. I couldn't get
Alabama.
out of school. Yeah, they had a regional game playing, I think at Cal State Long Beach or something like that. So my buddies all went to see him, and they're like, "This is back in college. Oh man, that guy's so good." They were talking about it. I was like, "Oh, I wish I could have seen him," but he was he was so versatile and just a great player when he was young. 3-pointers and blocks. That's such a rare combination. You don't get.
Wasn't Spreewell from Alabama as well?
He might have been, but I don't.
Were they
I
on the
don't
same
remember.
team? That would have been a hell of a
This is
college.
a. This is a. Where's my phone?
You weren't
I think
prepared for
my
that
kid might
question.
have walked off with it.
And then, no, honestly, this is the reason why we wanted to do this. We wanted to recreate
Yeah,
those experiences at the pub. Like, who would have thought? We're watching the '95 NBA Finals, and we're trying to figure out if Latrell Sprewell went to Alabama or not.
he's
But
the
that's
one who created those spinner wheels, as far as I recall.
yeah. They named it after him. I'm not sure if he create it.
Well, that's what I heard. Back when that was a thing about 10, 15 years ago. So I don't really know for sure. It just popped into my head right now.
Right. So getting back to the game though, and I think what was missing in all of this is the huge coaching advantage that the Rockets had. And Brian Hill, for me, reminded me of a shorter and nerdier version of, as you like to affectionately refer to him as, Dull Harris. He just didn't know what he was doing.
He's nerdier than Dole Harris. I don't think
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
possible.
Just the way he talks, man. Del Harris had the glasses and all that, but Del Harris, he'd been around a little bit longer. He wasn't. But I think, in all fairness, so he reminds me more of Scott Brooks as a coach. Like, he doesn't make adjustments. He doesn't really know what he's got. He probably will say one or two good motivational speeches every 3 months, but
Yeah.
beyond that, he just walks up and down the sidelines, as we see right now. He didn't really understand the flow of the game. I'll tell you what, if you put Phil Jackson in charge of this Orlando Magic team with the talent they had, you saw what he was able to do with Shaq and Kobe. Can you imagine what kind of damage he would have done with this team?
No, well, I mean, this is why coaching is important. You need a lot of stuff to be successful. It's not just about who can make the most 3-pointers or jump the highest, or the basketball is a game of synergy. You have to
Yes.
have you have these 5 guys working together for
Ooh.
12 if you
Was that Nick
count
Anderson? It was Nick Anderson. There you go.
yeah, nice shot. Yeah, the basketball is great because it's a game of chemistry, and it's not played on paper. So you look at a matchup and you go, oh well, these guys should win. Like, you look at this Rocket squad. They just bust that myth, not a myth. So yeah, it's
What's a
just,
moof, by the way?
I don't know, a truth. I
Is
think
it,
I was
is
going to
it
combine truth and myth. I don't know.
okay, a combination between a moof of a moose and a moth, maybe?
Yes, that's probably it.
Maybe we should call
Anybody
it that.
knows.
Maybe that should be the name of this series, man. The Moose series.
Yes,
But
sounds
no,
like
no,
a plan.
the synergy point that you brought up is great. And then man, no one talked about it though. Nobody talked about it. I think people may have fallen in love with this Magic team a little bit prematurely. They didn't take into account. Oh, the
Finally,
yeah, Ellie didn't break that dunk. But once again, you see how much the Rockets actually pushed the ball with Sam Cassell. But I think they may have fallen because keep in mind they closed out the Boston Garden. They beat the Bulls with Jordan, although yes, 17 games. I'm not going to discount that as being a factor. Then they survived the 7-game war of the Reggie Miller Pacers, but they were a tough team as well, and they
Yes.
had just beaten the Knicks. I think people may have looked at that, but let's keep in mind who the Rockets went through. As I said before, all the elimination games, I've said before as well that you look at who the Rockets went through. No team in NBA history since it's been 4 rounds to the championship. No team has ever gone through a Hall of Famer in back-to-back championships, apart from the Rockets. Because the first time they won, and we're talking first ballot Hall of Famers and MVP runner up or MVP winners, future or past. The first round in '94, they went up against Clyde Drexler and the Blazers. The next round was Charles Barkley, and the next round was Stockton and Malone, and then the finals was Patrick Ewing. The year after that, it was Stockton and Malone again, and then the second round was Barkley. Then it was the MVP and David Robinson, and then it was Shaq. So the team, their resilience level, like you just couldn't. At that point, they just had to be so confident they were going to overcome anyone that was in front of them.
Yeah, well, they just never panicked. They believed in themselves, and they just went out and did what they're supposed to do. And look at Olajuwon with a little 13, 15-footer.
He
Didn't
missed
hit
that.
it.
Yeah, but he missed that. But he's going to make that shot 95 times out of 100 when he's that wide open.
Yeah.
You've got to respect it. That opens up. We talked about the speed and the versatility of the Rockets. If you put Robert Horry or Mario Elie or Clyde Drexler on the Magic, are they going to have those lanes because Shaq is parked on the perimeter? We've seen this. Shaq's been on that same spot maybe 80% of the time he's been on the court.
That's what he does.
That's exactly right.
But
at some point, you become predictable.
Absolutely. But he just Shaq was all about physical domination. And when somebody stood up and just planted themselves there and said, no, damn it, I'm going to, as we talked about earlier, Rodman, Ben Wallace,
Hakeem
Olajuwon here, they just deal with it, and they just take it and then they come back for more, and I think that wears Shaq down. I don't believe Shaq is not a closer, in my opinion.
Oh, of course not.
Shaq is a great weapon, but when it gets to the end of a game,
well, he can't make his foul shots. That instantly eliminates him.
He can't make his foul shots. He doesn't really come out on defense, so he's vulnerable there. And he needs a big guy. Jordan never needed that. Pippen was great, but you could have plugged in maybe 20, 30 other players.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, man, because look, Shaq, and this is the reason I brought this up, and I'm not sure if you disagree with me or something else, but I brought this up, and it's the way that Shaq lost was so damning. And up until he won his first title, first year that they made the playoffs was '94. They were swept by the Pacers.
5 assists by Shaq right there. So he's
that's not surprising because once Olajuwon went to the bench, and even with Olajuwon on the court, they have been swarming him. Yeah. I don't know why they didn't count that, by the way. We just saw a drive baseline by Elie, who was fouled, but he made the shot and they didn't count it, and everybody's angry, including Rudy Tomjanovich, who wants to get punched in the face by Kermit Washington again.
That's definitely continuation.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
They didn't call it, so...
Yeah, right.
Shit happens, and that you have to have that mentality. I believe from watching so many games, I think if a team that gets upset by calls and they just can't get past it, like say the recent Clippers squads.
Yes,
that's part of the game. There's going to be missed calls, and you have to let it go and just figure it'll all work itself out. Maybe you could use. Game 6, was it Game 6 with Kings and Lakers as a bit of a counterpoint to that? But in general, the calls do even out over time. So you have to just get over that stuff. Yeah. And Rockets were very good at just getting down to business and doing what they needed to do. Nice shot.
Yeah, he's starting to catch fire a bit. which makes it even more
I think this
interesting.
is like a 20-point lead right now.
It's got to be
21.
close to that. The Rockets, they seem a bit flat. There you go.
20.
Good on you, Matt. 57 to 37. That's the 20-point lead that everyone talks about. But the resiliency, and as I said, well, after everything they had been through, all the wars that they had been through, they're battle tested. They're not going to they'll argue calls, but I don't think they let it affect them. And there you see Elijah one. See, what you see, though, with this Rockets team is they have the ability you've got 2 or 3 guys in Horry as well as Drexler that can put really a lot of pressure on an opposing defense. And they could actually create for Elijah one. Orlando had Penny, who could create, but he wasn't allowed to use his full complement of skills because of Shaq. But he was able to create for everybody. But outside of Penny, who could create for Shaq? And
Brian Shaw, perhaps.
Nah, he's not creating for him. Like he's throwing a good alley-oop or whatever. There's the 3rd foul for Hakeem.
Yeah, that's not looking good with a 20-point deficit.
Yeah, I know, right? But getting back to Shaq for a minute, because I want to talk about the 20-point deficit and everything that was going bad for them.
Nice box out.
That was textbook, man. That's the way you.
That's Ori, right?
That was Horry with the box out. And who was that with the tip dunk? Was that Ellie?
I think it looks like Ori.
It's the guy with the ball right
by
now.
The 3-point line.
Oh, there you go. But now they're starting to crash the glass. Although that's it was Ellie. Ellie there with he put that one back.
I think Mario Ellie, the old junkyard dog. What a find! This guy he bounced around.
Wasn't he like the 7th round pick or something when they went that deep? And he played over in Europe and he played in the CBA.
He bounced around all over the place, and he became a tremendous contributor off the bench. I mean, this guy, they don't win without him. He hit the kiss of death shot.
I was about to say, I'm glad you brought
right?
that up. There he is again.
Yeah.
That was great, wasn't it? Yeah, I wish basketball today had that kind of personality. I mean, imagine having the balls, man. Imagine having the kahunas to after you've just eliminated a team, you come back from 3 games just after they eliminated them the year before in Game 7 as well. Remember, people forget that the first year, their first championship, they were up 2 games. They were down 2 games tonight, and they dropped both home games in those opening games. And they came back.
Did both teams lose both home games? Like the first 4 games were run by the road squad, as I recall.
And the same thing happened in the 95 conference finals. And then the Rockets ran away with it. So, but just keep in mind that he's just knocked out Barkley. He's just knocked out Kevin Johnson, who had one of the greatest scoring performances in Game 7 history at that point. This son of a bitch, he shoots a 3, he makes it, and he turns around and gives it the kiss of death. As if it's not bad enough. And keep in mind, the year before, I'm not sure if you've seen this, remember Danny Ainge threw the ball right at his head. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
It was a situation where Ellie, I think it might have been Game 4. So as I said before, the first 2 games went to Phoenix, and they won both games in Houston. Game 3 was a blowout for Houston and Phoenix, got them back in this series. Game 4 was obviously a dogfight, and the momentum of the series was resting right there. And Ellie hit a huge shot on Danny Ainge, and he yelled right in his face. And then as the Rockets ran away with it, Danny Ainge, the ex-baseball player, he's inbounding the ball, and he just lines up a fastball with a basketball, of course, and he just launches it right into Ellie's head. And look that up, because you will hear a sickening thud when that ball hits his face. So keep in mind all of that when you're thinking about that kiss of death moment, which happened back in Phoenix. I wonder if he was looking at Danny Ainge when he did that.
Well, we should find a clip of that.
Yeah. Or we should reach out and see if we can get Mario Ellie on the show. But
killing him on the break.
Yeah, that is interesting. They run so much more when Elijah one's off the court. They've gone very, very small. But the point that I wanted to make earlier, which I never really did, was the way that Shaq would lose. And
yes.
So in 94, he was swept by the Pacers. 95, obviously, we're watching it right now. They would get swept by the Rockets. 96, we all know how badly they got swept by the Bulls. 97, they lost in 5 games. So a slight improvement, right? That looked like goaltending, by the way.
I think he tipped it in his own basket.
Oh, there you go. Sorry.
Nice.
But you're seeing a lot. Yeah, you're seeing a lot more activity by the maybe that third foul kind of woke up the Rockets a bit in this situation. But then in '98, they were swept by the Jazz, really emphatically too. A lot of people thought it was going to be the Lakers and Bulls in the finals that year. Good block.
Nice defense.
Oh my, back-to-back block.
Get that out.
And then they're running again within
you.
seconds. They're running.
Yeah.
Drexler's back down. That was a turning point when Hakeem got that third foul. I think they might have realized the situation.
They were down by 20 at the time, and now it's like, what, 15, 13?
Yeah. Well, they're well within striking distance. Oh, that was on Penny that he got those blocks?
And he got a little bit of help on the defensive end from Clyde.
Yeah. And then, of course, getting back to Shaq, so they were swept in 98, and they were swept in 99. So up until Shaq's first title, and series that he was eliminated, what we're talking about, 1, 2, 3. We're talking about 5 playoff series. He had only won one single game in those series. So once a team figured out, hey, this is a way to beat Shaq, just give up your body, then the teams weren't even competitive. It's down to an 11-point game. So that was really a turning point. When Elijah, I did not know that when Elijah went out with foul trouble.
Well, it's not intuitive like you would expect it to get worse.
Yeah.
But these guys are they're scrappy and they're tough and they just a great team. These guys might be the most mentally strong team in history. Just based upon everything we've said.
I think the 98 Bulls team is up there.
They might be.
Yeah. But no, actually, no, what? I take that back. The 98 Bulls team went through one elimination game. And that was Game 7 up against the Pacers. This Rockets team went through 5 elimination games in the first 2 rounds. I mean, the mental toughness to get through that. But keep that in mind, right? There's a point that I wanted to make with this is leading into this series, they didn't really know what to expect out of Orlando. Now, Alonzo Mourning, when they won the 2006 title, there's a story of Alonzo Mourning. I can't remember who said it, but there was just after they were up 3-2, so it was in Game 6 in Dallas, and Dallas gets out to a hot start. Of course, Dallas has lost all 3 games in Miami. And this is back when it was 2-3-2, not 2-2, 1-1-1. And Dallas gets out to a hot start, and they're only up by about 8 or 9 points. And Alonzo Mourning is really energized. He's like, he's on the bench. He's like, this is great. We got him. And the teammates looking around like, are you kidding? We're down. And Alonzo's like, that was their best shot. And we took their best shot. I wonder at what point Houston realized, especially with the run they just we've taken their best shot. That was their best start. There's Bill Walton in the middle, but that was their best shot that they could muster up, but they couldn't put them away.
Yes, that's right. I mean, they knocked 9 points off the lead when Olajuwon on the bench.
Yeah, and
right, so you got to think, well, gee,
look at Drexler's production: 15 points in the first half.
And 4 of 7. So the guy is just making it happen. Free throws, assists, drives to the bucket. He's got it going on.
Nick Anderson has matched him. It's just funny when you know what happens. It's like, wow, who would have, like, if he had a terrible game all the way through, it'd make a little bit more sense.
That's why the game's played on the courts and not on paper.
Yeah, that's true too.
It's just.
But honestly, it also shows the depth that Orlando did have. You mentioned Horace Grant, how good Horace Grant was. No one would have been surprised if Horace Grant had 15 points in the first half. No one would have been surprised if Shaq had or Penny had. Maybe there would have been a little bit of surprise if somebody like Dennis Scott or Brian Shaw had. But they had 4 guys, legitimately, as we just saw, that he was capable of it because we just saw him do it. They had 4 guys that could put up 15 points. I was a bit surprised that Drexler got 15. But out of those guys, Drexler's a Hall of Famer, not the 4th option. Whereas Nick Anderson was a 4th option, and he's more than capable of doing that. But look at them running now. Wow, look That's perfect. That is textbook fast break basketball.
You know, Orlando is got to be shitting bricks at this point.
Yeah, they're clamming up a bit. They're definitely, yeah.
Especially the crowd. I mean, in particular, the crowd has got to be like, no.
Do you think they had a good crowd? Like it's not like the Knicks or the Pacers or anything like that, though, right?
Well, no, they never had a sports team before, but they loved that squad. You know, the Orlando fans, I think, they're almost like a small, like a college or a high school. Like they've got that kind of passion about it that they love that team, especially back then. I don't know, I can't speak on today, but yeah, they were very passionate about this squad.
It's a underrated market because I've been. Oh my god, did they
Travel?
call offensively? Oh, they called it travel. But once again, look, Robert Horry of all people stepped in there and put his body on the line for it. But the Orlando market is underrated in its size because whilst the city of Orlando, it was a large one. Yeah. But what a ballsy move by Olajuwon to step in there and take that charge, considering, that could have been his fourth foul. But you keep in mind that, okay, Orlando's not that big of a city, but you got a lot of tourists coming in for Disney World. On top of that, Tampa is only 1 hour away, and that's a fairly large city. And I think an hour north of there is Jacksonville, which is, I think it's the biggest city in Florida in terms of population. So maybe Miami's bigger, but it's got to be close between them. Miami's got about 600,000 people. So it's a relative, like the area itself. There's Horry, my goodness.
Oh, that was a good shot, though. Wide open.
And you knew that they were playing with fire at that point because how many times had Orlando left them open? It was just a matter of time before they started raining in threes.
Double team, kicks it out, bucket.
Well, it's basic
was that
basketball.
3D?
Yeah, it was 3D. But it's just basic basketball at that point. But it's funny that, when you said they've got to be clamming up.
Well, the fans.
The players started to a little bit too after that fast break that we saw Ellie finish with a dunk. But when they started to clam up, you didn't see the movement away from the ball from Orlando. Well, that's a foul. What's he complaining about? Do you think Olajuwon's going to shoot
of the ball?
Do you think Olajuwon's going to shoot it that short, unless if he's fouled?
That's a giveaway.
Yeah, right. But keep in mind, let's watch for when the game gets closer towards the end of the stretch. How much activity away from the ball Orlando has, and if that stops, or if they're standing around and waiting for somebody else to make something happen.
Well,
because right now you're seeing the same thing. There's just
one-on-one.
No movement.
There's Horace, no luck. And here they go. The Rockets are off and pushing it on the defense.
Do you think had the Rockets, if the Magic had won game one, that would have really changed the outcome of this series?
Oh, Houston still would have won. But they would have put up more of a fight. Absolutely. As I recall, they were a bit deflated.
Yeah.
Sort of reminds me of when Dallas beat the Lakers in 2011. I think was that semifinals.
That was semifinals, yeah.
Kobe, that was the team that went on to beat LeBron and the Heat.
Yeah.
Kobe said something after the first game when Dallas came back from like a 15-point deficit in the second half, and Kobe said, "We're afraid of those guys," or something like that. And as soon as I heard him say that, I'm like, "Oh,
yeah, well, it's done.
It's over. It's already over."
Yeah, right.
So
and that's a veteran team. This is why I think you mentioned how important coaching is, but the inability for them to rebound because it's just one game. At the end of the day, it's just one game. Now, compare this to, say, Jordan and the Bulls. They lost game one to the Magic. Oh, not the Magic, but to the Lakers led by Magic. And they were able to recover and win in 5 games.
Well, they barely won that game. It was like, you're talking about 91 when Sam Perkins hit that three at the buzzer.
Yeah, I believe Magic was posting up and just kicked it out to him. Boy, that's a
Oof,
good. That was a
nice
beautiful
play.
play. That was a
Yeah.
fantastic play. I thought Drexler was going to go right up over the top of it. Prior to that, we saw Kenny Smith hit a three, and of course, we know how this game turns out with Kenny Smith just catching fire in the second half. But coaching was such a big thing. If you put Brian Hill with those
Oof.
Bulls, who's to say that they would have recovered? They probably would have. I mean, they had Jordan still, and Jordan was,
He
the
probably he
ultimate.
might have gotten the guy fired.
What, in the middle of the NBA finals?
Well, I mean, he might not have even made it that far. But Jordan's not a guy who tolerates weakness.
That's a good way to put it. That is a good way to put it. But he allows players. Well, I mean, Scottie Pippen was a bit mentally weak too, if we're being honest, especially offensively. So he tolerated him for a while. But I think you need to show that you have the ability to at least do your job around Jordan. He'll give you space to develop. And if you don't develop, he's probably not going to have a whole lot of patience for you. I don't think he took it personally, though, because you think of, people say that he got Doug Collins fired, but he brought Doug Collins back when he was with the Wizards. And he was pretty much running the Wizards. Wow, that was a hell of a shot. Who was that? Was that Drexler?
Clyde.
This is really Drexler's game. Nobody talks about this. Drexler had a hell of a game.
He certainly brought him back into the game.
He's been their best player so far, without question. And that's saying a lot considering, who his teammate is.
Yes. Well, I've always think of Kenny Smith, and I think of Ori, I think of Ellie, but yeah.
Olajuwon too.
Well, I mean, that goes without saying, but as far as...
that was Kenny Smith that made that shot. Did he tip that?
I thought it just...
Oh, no, he did. He did tip it.
Wow.
It's probably on the rim.
These guys are just more...
Look at it. It's a one-point game. Active. They brought that back in, what?
In no time.
3 minutes of the second half, a second quarter, and the first, 4 minutes of the 5 minutes of the... So in 8 minutes, they wiped out a 20-point lead, and half of that, they didn't even have Olajuwon. I think this is when they realized their advantage here was to just run on this team.
Well, it worked. Well, I mean, to a point. I mean, obviously, if things
that was
gone differently, like if Nick Anderson doesn't do what he does at the end of this game, we're looking at least game one goes to Orlando. So,
there's no question about that. Yeah.
17-7, nice game.
It's an interesting hypothetical if they would have been able to hold off, because they've always used that excuse. Well, if Nick Anderson just made it, but hey, there's still a long series, and Houston still had to win 3 more games. So
23-8 run over the last 6 minutes and 20 seconds.
That's unbelievable. That's even better than the way I described it. And now Olajuwon is allowed to isolate against Shaq. And Shaq's defended him pretty well, to be completely honest with you. He's done a much better job than what David Robinson did, if we're being totally honest.
Was that Horace missed the layup?
Yeah.
Robert
Horry tore up Horace Grant in this series. As much as we like Horace Grant and we talk about his value and everything, Robert Horry had the series of his life in this. Here we go. Who was that? Was that Ellie? Yep.
Mario.
Super Mario, huh?
Well, I mean, the game that Horace Grant is a power forward, like he's used to banging in the paint, and that's not how Ori plays. He's more of a small forward. He makes do, but Ori is not he's not a power guy. So it's a tough matchup for Horace. I mean, Horace did reasonably well, but
Well, he did his best, but there's only so much you can do in that circumstance, because you can't, because he's so athletic. Oof. You can just get in there. Athletic, which Drexler. Who were you going for in this series, by the way? Were you rooting for the Magic or the Rockets back in the day?
Rockets.
Why? What was that?
Well, West Coast for one thing. I liked Olajuwon and Clyde. I actually
look at that speed. Even at his age, man, he just blew right through everybody.
I wanted Clyde to win back in '92.
Oh, what? Why?
Because Jordan beat Magic. Jordan.
Oh,
So
then you should have been an Orlando Magic fan because they beat Jordan.
Yeah, but I like this squad. I've always liked this Rockets team. I like what they do. I like how they're balanced. They share the ball. I like their style. I like the way they do things. So, and Olajuwon has always been a favorite of mine from even fantasy basketball days. Like he was one of the few guys who could potentially get you like a quadruple double. The guy is just a beast.
Yeah,
And
he's definitely a
I just
stat
like
sheet.
everything about this squad.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Well, do you remember if Orlando was the darlings of the NBA at that point?
Yes,
They were.
absolutely. I wasn't a big fan of Shaq's at this time. I didn't like him, and him coming to the Lakers, I had to change my mind. Well, what are you going to do? I mean, he's on your team, so
Well,
you got to make do.
I've received a lot of emails from Laker fans that saying that they cannot support the Lakers now because of LeBron, which I found interesting. I found very interesting that their hatred of LeBron is so bad that or so strong that they've turned on their franchise. But the thing that I wanted to mention to you is you said
Well,
that
I'm a
the
fan
Magic.
of the Lakers. I'm not, that
Yeah,
they were
I know.
always my number one. It
Right.
was obviously Magic being there was a huge part of that, but I'm
The
not
re-
gonna. This was back in the day before Prime Ticket or before
right.
you could watch other teams. So you watch the team, and that's your team. So you want them to do well. So
So
that's my mindset.
the 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 reason why I asked you this question though is, do you think? And we've all seen the way that the NBA can manipulate outcomes. We're not going to sugarcoat that. Do you think the NBA wanted? Obviously, they didn't get it, but they never wanted Houston to win the title. I think in '94 they probably would have preferred it if New York had won, and I think in '95 I think they would have preferred that the Orlando Magic would have won to set up the Bulls and Orlando rivalry for many years to come. I mean, it's all
Well,
speculation. I'm not looking for fact-based arguments. It's just speculation. I think the NBA would have preferred that New York would have won in '94 because it's a much bigger market, much bigger basketball market than what Houston was, and I think Orlando was getting the interest from casual fans.
yeah. Well, they were the young, exciting team.
Mm.
So as far as what the league wanted, I mean, once you if once you go down that track, then you sort of lose the whole reason why sports are attractive, and that's the competition aspect of it. If otherwise you're looking at a WWE type event, where
It's probably even worse because at least the WWE will tell you, "Hey, this
yeah,
is
it's
predetermined."
known, right? I
But
mean,
look, I'm not saying the league actually actively participated in trying to make the Knicks win because obviously they didn't because they lost. And
like 2001 was it?
well,
2002 with
the better
Kings and
example,
Lakers.
yeah, the better example I was going to put up is actually the Miami Heat versus the Dallas Mavericks in 2011. It was clear that they would have preferred the Miami Heat to win that series, but there was no stopping Dirk. And actually, the similarities, I'm glad this came up, the similarities between Dirk and Olajuwon go much further than them both being foreign born. Their championship runs, I don't think, with the exception of Jordan, I don't think we've ever seen teams more reliant on one superstar in '94 for the Rockets and 2011 for the Mavericks. Boy, look at the speed of Ellie getting out on the break again. My goodness. If it's not Ellie, it's Horry. If it's not Horry, it's Drexler. They are killing them with that.
Yeah, that was
But yeah,
Clyde,
but
22.
the point that I was making though is Dirk in 2011 doesn't get talked of enough.
Well, he had to make up for 2006, right? Like
That's true.
losing the 2-game advantage, so people didn't uh, believe in him. He had a lot to prove.
I think the 2006 finals you think back to Nowitzki, and we're getting a little bit off topic here, but it's fine because we're running out of things to talk about. The 2006 finals. Let's think back to that, right? So the Mavericks finally make it to the NBA Finals. It looks like they've conquered the beast. They won Game 7 against San Antonio in San Antonio. That was a hell of a series. People don't talk about that when they talk about great series. That was the one where Dirk hit that 3-point play on Manu Ginobili who fouled him. They made the finals, and then they're up 2-0 on Miami. Miami doesn't look. They never look confident. They never look comfortable. Remember, Shaq had been there for 2 years. They had made the trades. They traded Eddie Jones for Antoine Walker, and Jason Williams was brought in. They weren't looking like a typical championship team. Pat Riley was coaching them, so they had that going for them.
Hit that.
Kenny Smith again, but the fact remains that the Dallas was massive favorites heading into that series. They win the first game.
Does Houston have a 5-point lead right now?
I'm not sure. If they do, it's a 3-point lead now.
It is.
I wish they would have the scores like they do now, where they've got them consistently. There you
76, go. 76-73. Yeah. Wow.
So we'll get back into the game in a second. Oh, here we go again. Hold on. Hold that thought. Kenny Smith again. What is that?
The game is intruding on our conversation.
Yeah. It's what, 3 threes for Kenny Smith in this half, which sounds like nothing, right, in today's game. But keep in mind, they're not shooting threes every single possession like they are in today's game. So you're talking about like 1 every 5 possessions, you're getting a 3-point shot in this game. So that's a huge difference. I thought he was going to pull up from there as well after he ball faked it. Well, they're leaving it open again. Oh, he gave it up. Why would you double up? Oh, they're still doing.
Oh, hit that.
That is horrid.
Oh.
But boy, if you leave Horry open, he hits it. You leave Smith open, he hits it. You leave Ellie open, he hits it. It's which one do you do? Cassell will make a shot too. Anyway, the point I was going to make is Dallas. So we're up 2-0. They had there's a good counter. Brian Shaw, but they're up 2-0. They were up by 15 points in the fourth quarter. They should have won that series. They ended up losing in 4 straight games. Then the next season, Dirk runs away with the MVP award. They win 7. Oh my goodness, make that shot. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Denny Smith again.
Killing them from outside.
And I love that. I love seeing that Sam Cassell, because these guys are essentially battling for minutes, but they're cheering the other guy on. I love that. And let's see if he gets another one. Oh, this fast break.
Oh,
no. Oh, what a pass!
They are just running these guys off the court.
Wow, my goodness. Did I call it or what? Did I say that they realized that they had a fast break advantage? Who would have thought that heading into that series at the fast break advantage? Boy, now this is just they are flustered right now. Whoa, that's a big shot by Shaq. Oh, was that Shaq or Horace Grant?
I think that was Horace.
I think so too. It looked too good for a jumper.
Yeah.
I'm surprised that didn't go. It was a half-court heave. Anyway, now we're at the end of the third quarter. I'm able to finish my bloody point. So you think about that loss that Dallas had in 2006. Then the next year they win 67 games. Dirk wins the MVP. They get to the first round, and they get beaten by 8-seeded Warriors. I don't think any superstar in NBA history has had worse back-to-back losses in the playoffs than those 2 losses.
Yeah, that was just. I mean, look, I think Don Nelson was their coach of the Warriors, right? He coached the Mavericks the year before.
No, I think they got rid of him. I think Avery Johnson was the coach of the finals. Remember, he had that little dust up with
the Warriors.
Oh, the Warriors. He was the coach of the Warriors. Yeah.
Yes, and he coached Dallas the year before, as I recall. There was a connection between them.
He coached them when they made the conference finals. I think it was in 2003.
Well, for some reason, I seem to recall that they had a bit of an advantage. Oh, Steven Jackson was huge in that series. Steven Jackson was guarding Dirk at significant parts of that series, and he was bigger than enough and strong enough.
That escape through.
Yeah, Kenny Smith is just shooting the lights out.
Look at the score. Look at the score, 89-80.
Yeah, I mean, this is actually the Magic would have needed a significant amount of resilience of their own
to come
back.
Yeah.
because they took a huge punch from Houston, and
yeah, they were stumbling there. But you notice now that they're posting up Drexler.
yes, that's versatility.
And now Orlando seems to be the one pushing the ball a little bit. It's funny how that happens. Once you're down, push, and now they've dragged it back to just a 4-point lead. No,
Right.
but what you're saying is right about Steven Jackson too and the role that he played.
Yeah, I mean his playing against the his role against Dirk.
Oh my God!
Holy!
Hurry again!
Knock it down,
They're
big
raining
man.
threes on these guys.
This is
How
not
many
something
threes
you
have they
see
made
very
this
often.
half?
Well, a lot.
I was about to say you better take off your shoes and start
Oh.
using your fingers and your toes to count it. Oh, Shaq.
Yeah.
Shaq is the only guy I've really seen in the 90s and the early 2000s that if he gets the offensive rebound, if you can't foul him, people just get out of the way. There's just no point in even trying to contest it.
Right. Oh, he's a big boy.
You know what? He's outplayed Olajuwon in this first game. Up until this point, I'm satisfied in saying that. Is
What's
that a
the
charge?
call?
I think that's a charge. Oh no, I think it's called block. That's hard to tell because but based off the fact that Horry's shaking his head, I'll say it's a block.
I'd say you're right, but you just get on with it. Not like the Clippers. Oh,
That was close.
Very.
I think that was a benefit of the doubt call more than anything.
Yeah, but you know what? It happens. You just have to accept that and figure it's gonna even out. As hard as it, the best teams are the ones who just get on with it and
of course.
stop whinging. And
do you
that's
think,
like life.
You brought up the Clippers a few times now. Do you think that was more of a reflection of Chris Paul or Doc Rivers, the fact that they were unable to get over the hump?
Well, it's kind of hard to put the blame on Doc Rivers, isn't it? I mean, were the Celtics like that? I mean, KG was essentially running those squads in the late 2000s, but I don't know. I don't know what he was like before or since, but I think sometimes it's part of that chemistry, right? You know, when a bunch of people get together and you get this mix of personalities, and I don't know that it's just one person. I sort of feel like you put these things
I still think
together.
it comes from the top down. And when I say that, I think Chris Paul was. Just look at the spacing. That is perfect spacing.
That is absolutely gorgeous gameplay.
Because you got Olajuwon in the post, you have 3 guys on the perimeter, and you got 1 guy cutting, and the 3 guys on the perimeter are Kenny Smith.
This is the mid '90s are, I've gone back and I've watched gameplay from the '80s, and it's so compressed. Like everything is close to the basket.
Yeah.
This time frame for me is peak because you've got some spacing, like especially with teams like the Rockets and Orlando. You got big guys in the paint. I mean, this to me is like the most balanced gameplay that you're gonna find. The '90s. Jordan, obviously. Jordan was not just a slasher. I mean,
no, of course not. No.
Great shooter, especially in the mid range.
Yeah, but even I remember writing in the book about how he was actually a very, very good 3-point shooter when he took more than 200 in a season. He shot very, very well. But speaking of 3-point shots, I know this is controversial and I haven't really brought it up to people. But do you think the 3-point shot is bad for basketball?
No, but everything in moderation, right? I mean, that's. But in this time period, it's an advantage. But I sure do like balance. I like to have the low post game. I like all of that. I like the spacing, but there's too much of a good thing.
Well, see, the reason why I think it's bad is you look at other sports. You look at baseball. You don't get 2 runs if you're able to knock it out 100 feet out of the stadium, right? You look at football. You don't if you throw a touchdown or you get if you throw a touchdown pass from 50 feet away, or as a touchdown run for 60 feet away, or 60 yards, excuse me, you don't get 8 points or
Bonus
9 points.
points.
Yeah. But with basketball, I think they've made it, it's a 50% increase. So
Yeah.
it's too valuable to not go for that, almost.
Yes.
So the incentive is too much. So unless if they re-engineered the entire scoring system so a 2-point basket is worth 3 and then a 3-point basket is worth 4 or something like that, so you're actually lowering the ratios, which would be such a drastic thing I'm not sure you could do. And look, to be honest, there's no going back. I don't think you could ever get rid of the 3-point shot. However, in hindsight, the way that it has been essentially hoarded out right now, I wish they never brought it in.
Oh, that's a. I don't know. I guess if you didn't know any better, like if that was all you knew, but I'm telling you, I went back and I watched. I think it was Sixers Celtics, and the game was.
Game 7.
It might have been, but you know netball, that little they got a
Yeah,
little
yeah, yeah. I
circle.
grew up in Australia, mate. I know
Yes,
netball.
they got another line that extends around the free throw line, extended all the way around in an arc. That's where most of the action was taking place in those games. You have I like today's I like not so much today's game, but I like the fact that the game is more spread out. It's more space. I like that. It's more pleasing visually.
Right.
It's less of a brawl at times.
I get that, but I think there's something to be said for the paint. It makes
Yes,
sense that the paint should be the most pivotal piece of real estate on the court, and yet it's not anymore. Now it's
maybe
around the
we
three
give
point.
maybe 3 points to dunks then.
Well, not just dunks, but shots inside the paint.
Layups, anything in the paint
Yeah,
counts for an extra point.
then you could really say goodbye to the mid range. Maybe that's the answer, though. Maybe the answer is every basket is worth 3, but then you're really getting rid of the 3-point shot. Then, oh my, what did he
Wow.
take? Nick Anderson from the dotted line. And it's interesting that you're seeing like look. Maybe I was a bit harsh on Brian Hill. Maybe he has some abilities to make some in-game adjustments because they were not running like this early on. Oh,
Oh,
good
good
steal by Penny.
defense. He's quick. Yeah,
Do
he
you know what the
was
score is?
a
We
hell
got a
of a
score
player.
check here.
I haven't looked in a few
Yeah,
minutes.
I'm going to say it's close right now.
So
Shaq,
is that who
I
was
think
that? Is that Caldwell Jones on Shaq right there? It was less of a physical guy. I think Hakeem's playing power forward right now.
Oh, maybe. Is it Chucky Brown? Oh, no, number 27. Who was number 27 for the Rockets?
Caldwell Jones, I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
Just he's essentially just a big.
Oh,
Oh, that's old E. That's old E. Yeah, I call him old E because of this video game. I used to play with my friend in college, Joey.
Right.
And every time you'd shoot a three, it would go. It was a Konami game, and it'd be like, Oli for 3.
Oh, is it a Hori?
Got it. Yeah, Oli. So that's my nickname.
Isn't that a
for him.
skateboard trick, an Ollie?
An Ollie, yeah. But Oli. Look at that.
That block you just saw by Hori on the fast break. This is the third time that Hori has blocked Penny Hardaway this game.
Oh, that was Olajuwon. Hakeem.
Oh no, the one before that. The one before that on the break.
Oh yeah.
Who was that made that 3? Was that Penny?
It looks like it. God, I wish we had HD.
Oh my god. Look at this. Look at this game. It's 98-96. Oh, is it 98-98?
I'm full screen, so it's a bit
there
blocky.
you go. Okay, me too, man. There's Olajuwon. But yeah, you see Horace Grant on Olajuwon. That's interesting. I wonder if Shaq's in foul trouble.
Well, I think Horace was makes sense. He could definitely. He's got the size. Olajuwon's not a big guy.
No,
he's just very quick and skilled.
I would have liked to have seen his. I would have gone with because when we saw Drexler start to tear up in the open court, I would have put Penny on him because I think Penny's a bit of a quicker defender on the perimeter than Scott or Anderson.
Yes.
That would have been an interesting matchup. And I don't think he would have been able to. Drexler would have been able to post up easily. There's your boy Kareem.
Kareem, yeah.
Wasn't he Lou Alcindor at that point? When did he change his name to Kareem?
Oh, I'd have to get out my. But he was definitely a beast. Quickest to reach the finals. I'd like to see. I was thinking today. I'd like to see Bill Walton, like back in Portland days. You know, winning that championship.
Well, if you thought the quality was bad for the 90s,
totally. No, we would highly unlikely we find a good quality unless someone like who's that guy, the Wilt Chamberlain archive?
Oh my God, where does he get this stuff? He's got to work for the NBA. There's no other way. There's no other explanation for this.
No, it's the quality of what he's getting. That's why this is a bit infuriating because we can't find a good copy of this game. Right. But he's got some stuff from the 60s and 70s that is more than passable.
But obviously the NBA has much better quality stuff because you see the highlight packages that they put together and those are crystal clear from the mid-90s.
Sure.
Oh, that is just... he took that right in the chest. Who was that? Caldwell Jones, the guy?
That's Caldwell Jones, yeah.
Wasn't he the guy that Magic jumped center against in
Probably.
the 80s?
He's been around a long... Jeez.
That is such an offensive foul.
That's just Shaq, man. He puts his shoulder down and just goes.
Oh, my God.
But he got away with it.
I know,
that was... Man, they gave it to him all the time.
Well, Chamberlain said this. You sent me the link about it, where it's hard when, the guy lowers his shoulder, lifts his defender off the ground. The defender gets flung to the ground, and they call the foul on the guy laying on the ground. Like,
it's so egregious when you see that clip of Chris Dudley, Shaq doing that to Chris Dudley, and he just sends him flying, and Chris Dudley gets up, and he's like, "What?"
He threw the ball at him, right?
He threw the ball at him because what can you do? The guy's like got 50 pounds on you, and he just essentially steamrolls you. So. Yeah, I was. That
had no
chance. Good defense.
That had no chance.
He was open for a second.
Yeah, they fell in love with the three a bit too much there, I think.
Yeah, that's right.
This game's really interesting. Sorry, guys, if you're listening and the topics have died down a bit. It's just this game is.
Well, we're not exactly a play-by-play crew here.
You're meant to be watching along. It's called a watch along. I mean, if you're listening. We're just seeing, the intensity is picked up. When we were talking a lot is when the intensity was dying off a little bit. But quite honestly, right now we're seeing great intensity on both sides.
I wish they'd get rid of that tornado watch sign.
I know, man. Like, what the and the Bucks score.
God, wouldn't it? Just some quality feed right here would be.
Oh, incredible. Who was that? Was that Cassell?
That was Ellie.
Oh, Ellie. There we go.
Yeah. He was, God, what an integral part for a guy. Like we said earlier, the guy bounced around and he found himself.
Scores are tied at 100 if you're wondering if you just
5 minutes to go. Yeah. Man.
We're improving our play-by-play. This is...
I used to love Chick Hearn, man. He was the greatest.
Oh, my God. Chick Hearn, he's like... Look, if I have to do a Mount Rushmore of people that made the NBA great, he is on my Mount Rushmore.
Oh, absolutely. I could, before, when I didn't have cable at home, I just put on the radio, and you could just listen to Chick, and he'd call it the bird's eye view, and you could just understand the game. And as it's happening, like, you almost didn't even need the TV.
He painted the perfect picture. And what I respected the most about him was he always showed respect to the game first and foremost. There was no bigger Laker fan than him. But that being said, he loved basketball more than he loved the Lakers.
That's right. And he would call people out when they were, even the Lakers, he'd call them out when they were at fault. He was not a biased observer like some of the Celtics announcers that we've had.
What's the name of that guy, the Celtics announcer?
Johnny Mouse. This is a despicable display. Sounds like he's been drinking heavily.
Sounds like
before
Daffy
and during. Maybe that's where they got the inspiration.
But you know that play with the Rambus clothesline?
Yeah.
That was the best reflection that you could ever get about the contrast between Johnny Moist, and Chick Hearn, because you had Chick Hearn was livid, obviously, because it was one of the dirtiest plays you'll ever see. Like, I like Kevin McHale, and I
Yes.
respect that Celtics team for coming back. But that being said, that was a dirty play, man. You could have killed him. He could have been a paraplegic if
Sure.
Rambis landed wrong. He could have been real bad. Because
Absolutely.
both guys going at full speed. Rambis is in the air. If he landed on the top of his head, my God, he's not walking
Yeah.
again. Um,
Absolutely.
or he could have fractured his skull. That's a hardwood, remember? Um, but and then Johnny Moss am I pronouncing it right? I might
Most.
just I'll stick with
That's it.
Moist. Johnny Moist. He was saying
Oh,
how
petty
the
again
yeah.
in the paint.
Excuse me, I'm in a Moist story here. No, don't talk about.
Sorry, man. Sorry.
I'm
This is
just
like a bar, you know.
It's cool, man. 102 all with 4 minutes ago. Olajuwon spinning baseline and missing Shaq. Was that Shaq on him or was that Horace Grant? I think they
It looked
doubled
like
him, actually.
Shaq.
Oh, now they're running again, and that's O'Neal
Oh,
running the floor.
Shaq.
O'Neal was very underrated at running the floor for someone
Yeah,
his
straight ahead
size.
speed.
And what he described it later on, he said, if I ran to the front of the rim, he would force his opposition to put all their strength to just push him out of the lane. But then he's already getting it in prime post position, so he's only one dribble away anyway. Shaq was very underrated from that side. It's just disappointing to hear how aware he was in taking advantage of situations, but not being aware. That's a hell of a shot by Penny, by the way.
Woo.
But not being aware of his weaknesses, such as look. I'm not going to get on for foul shots because we've seen Bill Russell and Wilt Chamberlain and LeBron James at late game situations really sucking from the foul line. So I mean that has been known to happen. But what I will get on him for is not stepping out in pick and roll situations or not even looking to develop a 10-footer. I mean, like those are basic basketball fundamentals.
I got another one for you.
Okay.
Keeping himself in shape during the offseason.
or not waiting until the start of training camp to get surgery on your toe.
Yeah, those aren't not endearing qualities for your supposedly best player. And the Lakers made the right decision in moving him because
he wanted the max contract.
Well, I remember I looked at his numbers, games played after his what?
Boy, look at the
third
large
year?
one, only 3 rebounds. That's interesting. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, you're right. He's Shaq's outplaying him right now. But Shaq, after I think his third year, might be after this year, he's missed like a third of all the games he could have played. Like,
oh. Well, let's be honest though. Like some of that's inflated towards the end of his career though, when he tore his Achilles.
Sure.
But still,
with
it's
the
far too many.
Celtics.
It's far too many. Shot clock running down. Drexler, I don't think he makes that. Surely that would have been a hell of a shot if he made that. Look. Oh my God, he just took it away from Olajuwon. But look at once again, Shaq's beating him down the court. This is interesting. 104, 102. I didn't catch how long there is. There's probably about 2 minutes left.
Yeah, it's getting down to crunch time.
And they're posting up Shaq again. And Shaq going glass. Wow.
Nice, baby jump hook.
I think that's the first shot I've seen him take all game outside the key.
Yeah, it has. It's been an infrequent.
This is and there's Olajuwon right back at you. I said and
I think he got a foul.
Yeah. Let's see if they call continuation on this one. No, this is what I think people were expecting. I think people were expecting the CSE just takes it right away from Olajuwon. Although Horace Grant did sort of contest it a little bit too. But I think this is what people would have been expecting heading into this game, the duel between the big men. We haven't really seen that. It's been more of a duel between the guards for each team and who can get out in transition.
Yeah, this is
105, 106, Orlando with a lead. Yeah, 105, 106, Orlando with a lead, 2 minutes 30 to go. And Penny's in the post now. Oh. That's a bad pass. If he puts it on his chest, he's going up.
Tipped.
Oh, did it? Well, that would make a bit more sense because he's a very underrated passer. I want to tell this Johnny Moist story. I think we'll have to wait for it though.
Well, so
wait, this Shaq again. Tipped.
I think Horace got a piece of that.
Yeah, he got a piece of it, but it was Brian Shaw of all people who ended up cleaning it up. And they would be up by 3, I believe. Yes, 108 to 105, 2 minutes and 10 seconds to go now. I feel like I'm Chick Hearn. Chick Hearn has come across me. There's Elijah one coming
Chick's
right
ghost.
back. Elijah one again. He's woken up.
Nice.
Now Elijah one's starting to serve it up to him. That was a sweeping hook. But the counters that he has, if you overplay that, him going to the lane, he's going to just spin baseline on you. Or he will throw a drop
He's
set.
just so smooth, you know. Like he doesn't look like he's really trying out there.
Like, that's a big board. That was a huge defensive rebound. Score remains the same. It's at 1 minute 40, so it's still a 1-point game.
Man, look at this battle. I mean, I mean, jeez, the Magic went out with the big lead. Rockets come roaring back. Orlando comes back again. I mean, this has just been a classic. What are you gonna do?
It's such a shame the rest of the series didn't live up to expectations. Shaq again. It's such a shame the rest of the series, even if it just went 6 games, something like that, where there was a bit of drama.
Shaq's tough.
Yeah,
he's tough. Well.
He had such an underrated. I give Shaq a lot of grief for his lack of post skills or his lack of skills in general. But he had a very soft shot. A lot of his shots just roll in.
He would get so many bounces. Like you'd see some of his shots that get like 3, 4, or 5 bounces and just gently roll in. Just clears out Hakeem. No big deal. Just all part of the game. I think he did get a bit of actually a lot of leeway from the officials.
Oh, too much. And LeBron gets a lot of it now too. And now everyone complains about James Harden. Just to give an update to anybody that's listening, it's 110 to 107. Orlando with the lead and 1:20 to go.
Welcomes the world to the Hakeem finals. That was just a sign in the audience.
Yeah, that's a bit weird. Anyway,
Orlando is they are a bit cheesy. Remember, they've only had a franchise for what? Well, 6 years at this stage. 6,
and also
years.
What you said before, they didn't even have a professional sports team or much of a college culture either before this. So the whole sporting landscape, not just professional basketball, the whole sporting landscape is new to them.
Yes, they're very, very excited, energetic. You know, it is a bit new. It's a new experience for these folks. Understandable.
Do you think Shaq and Penny, had they stayed, what was it, travel? You don't see that.
He got double teamed, and I think he got knocked out of bounds.
Do you think if Shaq and Penny had stayed together, they could have been as successful or more successful than Shaq and Kobe?
Well, Penny had that knee injury in
let's
96.
Remove that. Let's remove that. Let's assume he's
assuming healthy.
Yes.
If they could have been better.
Yeah, or as good.
It's possible, but look at what I think Penny developed a little earlier.
Let's say
Penny
this
developed
question
younger.
Let's.
We got 30 seconds to go.
Yeah, 110, 107. 26 seconds to go. I'm not sure what the shot clock situation is. They don't have that up. Shaw's putting up a shot. He misses that. Kenny Smith can't get the ball. Who's got that? Penny's got it.
Wow, and this is looking like the game right here. 15 seconds.
Here we go. When does he get fouled? Did they foul him yet? Yep, it's Nick Anderson to the foul line. Remember, this is the situation. 110, 107. Nick Anderson.
10.5 seconds to go.
Yeah.
Man, you'd be if I was Tom Jonovich, I'd be like, come on, that's a lot of time to run off the clock.
It all worked out for him.
It did, but textbook style.
Yeah.
That's a hard. You get. I don't know if you want to foul him there.
Oh, that wasn't even close. Did you see? He did not get his legs in at all with that. He's already moving back. And now
he's starting to talk to himself.
He should.
And he's had a great game.
Yeah.
22 at 5.
From 17 shot attempts. But honestly, Brian Hill should have called a timeout and talked to him. Oh, that one was even worse. I'm surprised that even hit the. But somehow the ball
And
came
he's
back.
so mad at himself.
But see, they've got it. He's like Shaq's talking to him. The rest of them are talking. But now there's too many. I guarantee you, he's not hearing any of that
No, he's
right now.
just very angry at himself, I would say.
He did not want that ball. I've never seen anybody pass the ball quicker than that off a rebound. He would have preferred to throw the ball out of bounds and to get fouled again. But look at the frown. He's not into it at all. He would rather be anywhere else than at the foul line, right?
It's sad but true. Oh, God.
Brian Hill, I don't know what he's upset about. Maybe he should call a timeout.
3-point lead with less than 10 minutes, 8 seconds to go.
Yeah. And he's already had 2 fouls.
And he's going back to the line again. This is to ice the game.
There's no movement in his legs, and that one's long. That was so flat. There was no arc to that. And now he's gone. At this point, there's no way. He's laughing now. There's no chance. This shot could be for his life, and he'd miss it.
Oh, ouch.
No wonder he was done for the rest of the series, man.
God, that just cost him the game right there. That should have been a double 2-possession game.
Oh, easily.
With 10 seconds to go, this should be essentially ready to move on to game 2. But
yeah, I mean, you never know. You never know what's going to happen. But yeah, there's a huge difference between a 3-point lead and a 4-point lead with 8 seconds to go or 5 seconds to go. Still, that's sad because I don't want to blame the coach, but do you think Phil Jackson would have recognized the body language in that situation?
Quite possibly.
I mean, you
he's a master of that kind of thing.
But you recognize it. He's talking to himself. He's yelling at himself. He's pounding his chest.
I remember him doing this. I remember this game, and you look at him, and he's like, the first shot, he's like, I shouldn't have missed it, and then missing
like he's not even following through. He's like a hitch. It's like he's just almost like a chest pass.
He was done after he missed that second one. He's like, the gods are against me at this stage. Like, why have you abandoned me?
Oh, a head fake. Tie game. Look at the bench. Why would Penny bite on that?
Close to the 3-point line right there. That looked. I want to see that again because that looks so close.
Why did Penny bite on that? Penny's 6'9". Kenny Smith is 6'3". All he's got to do is stay down. He gets burned with the head fake. Oh
wow! What a dagger, man.
That was. I can sort of see why this took him out of him. Oh my God, Penny! Why would you do that?
What a shot! I mean, that's got to be one of the best shots, like top 10. And I don't think anybody ever talks about it. That was an incredible shot.
Yeah, you're right. No, you're 100% right. People talk about Ray Allen's shot or Kyrie Irving's shot. That one changed the complexion of this whole series.
Damn.
I can't get over the fact that Penny bit on that fake so badly.
Yeah, seriously. Like,
if he stays down and just contests with his long arms and his jumping ability, he's going to make that a hell of a lot. Yeah.
That's all you got to do is just make it tough on him. You don't have to block it. Just contest it.
Look, I could understand if he was, trying to get a jump on Dirk Nowitzki. Look at what Robert Horry did. Robert Horry didn't go quickly. He just waited until he started to go up in the shot because he had the advantage on Dennis Scott. And once again, look at the body language. He's absolutely like Scott Brooks, man. He's clueless. Brian Hill.
Well, those last 10 seconds just took the wind out of the sails of the Magic, man. Just surprising.
I wonder, in hindsight, would they have had more confidence about what they were doing if they never got that offensive rebound? Remember, it was Brian Shaw that put the shot up and Penny Hardaway got the offensive board. Because you think about what happened after that. After the offensive board, it finds a way to Nick Anderson. They would have thought that he would have been able to at least make one shot. He didn't. And then, you're thinking like this game should be over. And their mind is wandering elsewhere. Maybe in hindsight, that was the worst thing that could have happened to them. But how many lives does the Houston Rockets have?
But I mean, they played it perfectly. You know, they've got a 3-point lead. They've got the ball. The clock's running down. I mean, that's like a 99 times out of 100, you're winning that game.
That's an interesting stat right there. The last 5 overtimes in the NBA Finals.
All
93
won by the
Phoenix.
visitors.
Yeah, Portland versus Chicago. I think that was game 2. Chicago defeating the Lakers. That was game 3. I didn't catch the other one, but the first one I saw was the Lakers and Celtics.
Yeah,
but that was a bad omen. I wonder when the first. I wonder who broke that streak.
So what? This is overtime games. The
Yeah.
stat was overtime games in the finals have been won by the visitor.
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and say it was game 1 of the '98 finals when Utah beat Chicago.
You might be right. We need to get our researcher on that one.
Did game 3 of this series go to overtime? I'll look this up. You can continue to talk. Talk to the people, Matt.
Talk to the people.
Talk to the people.
Talk about Chicago. Though, look at this.
Oh yeah.
Shaq's got 25, 13, and 8. Olajuwon, I didn't see it, but Shaq outplayed him, and still the Rockets. What a supporting cast, man! Just complete team. This is why I love them. These guys were just
But I think
this is what a game is supposed to be.
But I think that's a reflection of Olajuwon. Olajuwon instilled the confidence to them. It wasn't like LeBron in the finals when he checks out, everyone else checks out. When LeBron struggles, the rest of his team struggles because they're all micromanaged by LeBron.
Yes.
But when you see, you know, what we're seeing with Olajuwon here, when he struggled, the rest of his teammates picked him up.
Yes. Well, it's not just the teammates. I mean, coaching. I mean, there's a lot of factors that go into this. And it's fun to watch. I got to tell you, when you got a team like this you got a bunch of strong-minded individuals get out and do what they need to do. It's a pleasure. It's a joy. Was that Ori? Yeah.
Was that Ori? I missed it. What happened? Ori hit a 3?
He just hit a 3.
Boy,
that's what these guys are doing. They're a team. They are 5 players on that court making it happen, and that's, to me, that's basketball. It's not just having one all-star and you know, like they used to say about Jordan. It was like Michael and the Jordanaires. You know, he had
the Jordanaires.
You got to have, yeah. That was like back in the 80s when he was just essentially all alone out there. This is basketball, though.
But see,
5 men.
What you see now in the NBA is super teams. So people now say, well, you need 5 superstars, and they're all playing together. But see, the Rockets, they were clearly not a super team. You had one player that was absolutely phenomenal in Olajuwon. You had Drexler, who was on the decline, but still, yes, he was still a star. The rest of the guys were not all-stars, but yet they understood their roles and they just played. Look at that. Shaq shot better at the foul line than what Nick Anderson has.
Did he just airball that last one?
No, no, he's 6 of 9 from the line. But it's tie game with 3 minutes and 13 seconds to go. And Olajuwon's got the ball. He's getting doubled. Look, when you look at those stats, and this is why you can never. Does he make that? Oh, my goodness, Robert Horry. And when he's leaning back on that shot, it is so hard to block. He hit another 3, obviously. But this is why you can never judge. That's a beautiful move. Who was that? Was that Penny? Yeah, that was Penny. Did that count?
No, I think he got stripped on the way up.
Oh,
so he should be shooting free throws.
But the point I was going to make is when you look at, and this is why you can never rely on just box scores. Olajuwon's getting doubled every single time he's down on the post. And when he wasn't getting doubled, he did burn Shaq repeatedly in that 4th quarter going across the lane.
Yeah, well, he did what he's supposed to do as the number 1 option. Oh.
That was a Dennis Scott special, that one, wasn't it? Pump fake, take 1, dribble to the corner, and shoot a 3.
Yes. Unfortunately, it didn't work out.
So it's still a 3-point game with 2 minutes and 20 seconds to go. Olajuwon spinning baseline.
The dream shake didn't work.
Yeah, that's not really a dream shake, I don't think. What was a dream shake? The little head and shoulder shimmy.
And then fading to
Boy,
the
they are
baseline.
just jacking up threes left, right, and center. They've got 2 minutes left. This is not
Yeah.
a very well coached team.
No,
I
they really
compare this
should
to
have
the
slowed it
Rockets.
down.
Yeah, you compare this to the Rockets when they were down. They didn't panic. They understood. There's plenty of time left. 2 minutes. You're gonna get a lot of possessions. Oh my god.
Oh,
Oh,
that
that
would
was
have
halfway
been
down.
backbreaker.
Oh,
Oh,
oh. Did they count? I don't think so.
I don't know. I think
Oh no,
it
no,
was a block out
there
of
was no
bounds.
foul. It was just a bucket. I think. Yes.
Oh, so wait, it's 118, 115 or
Is it, or is it
116,
116,
115?
116? I don't know. Let's hope we get some better pixels on screen. This is terrible. Let's see. Maybe if I lower it, maybe if I make it a bit smaller. It's 116 to 115, I think. Oh, jeez, I don't know, man.
Yeah, it looks like a 6, I guess.
I'm assuming what
Okay, now this is
what
what
could they have
happened?
possibly called? Unless they
A
called a
block?
travel. They couldn't have called a travel, surely.
Oh, okay, it was a yeah. Sorry, I missed that.
I think that's a 6.
Yeah,
I'm gonna go
116,
out on a limb and
115.
say it's a 116 to 115. But here's the thing, right? If you're Orlando, you talked about this before. You mentioned the Clippers repeatedly, but you talked about you got to let it go. If you're the Magic, you've got to let this go. And they're down by 1 point, but you're still at home. There's plenty of time. You can get this done.
Absolutely.
You got to let what happened to Nick Anderson. Nick Anderson should be benched right now because he's not giving you anything. They should bring in Brian Shaw, but
But then you'd really destroy it.
well, as he was gone already. So what are you really?
Oh,
Oh, baby!
too easy.
Now we'll see. If it goes to 120, we'll know it was on 118.
Yeah.
No,
So
it was
now it looks like
116.
118.
So
So
now it is 118 to 115 with 1 minute 25 seconds to go. Penny's out top. Shaq comes to. I guess he was going to set a screen, but he never did. Now Shaq's got the ball behind the 3-point line. That's something you rarely see. Oh, what was that?
defense.
Was that Caldwell
Charles?
Jones?
I think it might have been Caldwell Jones.
Look at them! Look at them running again. But this is a sign of a very smart team. Oh my god! If he had shot that, they had numbers. They could have pushed that, but instead they wanted to run the clock down.
Well, that's what you do. That's textbook.
Elijah one isolate again, but they
Nice
comes that
pass. Oh, better
Shaq.
defense.
Yeah, excellent defense. Shaq.
Oh, and the rip.
Shaq has played him very well for the most part, with the exception of that stretch in the fourth quarter where Elijah made 3 or 4 shots going across the lane. He has played him very well. Why are they fouling out at the 3-point line like that?
Maybe they're trying to get the ball back.
But there's 40 seconds to go. Oh, is it a 5-point game or a 3-point game? I'm pretty sure
that made it 5. I think that hook shot made it 5, didn't it?
I don't think so. I think it's 118 to 115. Can we get a
might
score?
have to cut the last.
No, we're not cutting it here. This is great, man. If people have stuck around this long, they're going to realize that it's 118, 115.
Okay.
Why would they foul that? Anyway, the clock's ticking. The clock is ticking.
I don't know that you. Okay. 8 seconds on the shot clock. Kick out. Hit that.
Oh my god! Oh, we missed it. Big rebound by Shaq. 17 seconds left. Now, well, I guess you got to go for the 3 here now.
Well, you're in that position, so yeah.
I would call a timeout. They are all over the place. They don't know what they're doing.
Very disjointed.
Yeah.
Wow. Can you?
It kind of sucks because I know what it leads to, so I know that what will happen, but I don't know how it's going to happen.
Well, look.
This would have been a great game to watch live.
Well, it's the mental part of the game is just so key, and we're seeing that Orlando just doesn't have it. They're there. It's close, but what a terrible turn of events. Nick Anderson really should have hit at least one of those shots, and
no kidding,
doesn't come through.
I wonder what the percentages are for him to miss all 4 of those.
Well, he was 67% free throw shooter during the regular season, so
Okay, so let's round that up. Let's go to 70%, right?
Mm.
So 70%, it's you have to get out the calculator because you got to then work out, okay, 70% to make one, so 30% to miss one, then it's 30% of that. Oh, sorry, 30% of that 30% to miss the second one, then 30% of the 30% of the 30% to miss three.
Yeah,
We're talking.
it's highly unlikely.
All right, so the Magic are about to inbound here. I think Dennis Scott is about to. Is that Dennis Scott? Yeah, he was about to inbound the
Yes.
ball. They pulled a
Because they
timeout.
what they would do, the guy inbounding the ball in that position is the most dangerous player out on the
Yeah.
court. Lakers used to do that all the time with Michael Cooper. He would always receive the pass back, and he nailed. It was uncanny the accuracy that he had back in the '80s. He would hit a high percentage of those shots as the inbounder.
Now,
So
tell me,
I think that's what they're doing.
I've only watched a few games. Well, when I say a few games, but I didn't grow up in it in the 90s and the 80s. Is it true that a lot of teams would actually take a delay of game in that situation so they would actually see what play they were about to run and then call a timeout if you're on the defense?
Sure, absolutely. That's a great way to see what. I mean, we're talking about the ball game here, so take whatever opportunity you can get.
Okay, three. So they're obviously going to take a three. Here we go. The Shaq. Oh, wow! Is that Scott? Oh,
yeah. Was that a 2 though?
No, it was a 3.
It looked like it came in, but
remember the line was shorter in '95 too.
That's
it. Did you call it or what? You called it 100%. Dennis Scott inbounded to Shaq. It was an easy pass into Shaq, and then right back to Dennis Scott, who caught it from the elbow and nailed a 3. We'll be able to see. Yeah, I'm certain for a 3-point specialist, he would have been behind the line.
He'd have to. I mean, any any shooter worth his salt knows where that line is. And look how wide open it is.
Oh no,
that is just bad defense.
But compare. Okay, the Rockets just screwed up there. That should have never happened.
Right.
But compare the mental toughness of the Rockets to rebound after that, as opposed to great Scott, as opposed to what the Orlando Magic. The Orlando Magic, they're running on fumes right now. But they've hung around, in all fairness to them.
Yeah, well, they're right there.
So I don't buy into this notion that because Nick Anderson missed all those foul shots and that was it, they were done. I think that's just an excuse. I think they were severely outplayed the rest of the series.
Nick Anderson was definitely done.
Sure.
And when you're in the game, in the moment, adrenaline's going and stuff, that's fine. But when you've had when you look back and you think, like LeBron, 51 games, game 1 this last finals, but they were that call at the end, the charge block, and then having J.R. Smith screw up at the end there where he should have taken the layup.
But he got the offensive rebound. That actually helped him out in the long run. Anyway, hold that thought. Let's watch the last 5.5 seconds of overtime here. It looks like Horry's going to inbound.
Well, my point is, once the adrenaline wears off and you start thinking about it, that was a huge punch in the nose.
But think about the other great players like Larry Birds and Michael Jordans that have taken punches in the nose and they're able to rebound from it. Anyway, let's check this. There, that's the delay of game that I was telling you about. See, Orlando took that delay of game. Now Horace Grant has to go way back to allow this inbounds pass. Oh, they're going to Drexler. Drexler's driving, missed it. Elijah, baby. See, I knew that was. I knew it because I'd seen the highlights of that. I That's a hell of a tip in, isn't it? It's like just a backhand. He almost backhanded that in.
Yeah, it's very so easy, just nice and smooth. That was.
Is that his first game winner in this 2-year run?
You know those kind of details better than I do, bro.
Shaq had to come out.
But
there was
right.
no rotation.
Horace was out.
Horace was on Horry. Honestly, it should have been Drexler's guy, Nick Anderson again. Where is Nick Anderson? Oh, you just went right past him. Oh, what are you doing, Nick Anderson? That's even worse than the foul shots.
Well,
did you see that?
Yeah, he went. He boxed out somebody else.
He boxed out no one. Where did he go?
I thought
Like
there was somebody else.
he kept going. We went to like the fourth row. I told you he didn't want to be anywhere on the court. He wanted to get
That
off
was
the
a
court.
killer. That was.
That's what killed them on that. Look at where Nick Anderson ends up. He's nowhere. Oh, box out Nick Anderson. Oh, that. Oh.
Yeah, that's a killer. Crushing blow.
Rudy T. Oh, Rudy T, man.
Well, this is kind of my theory. It sort of ties into what you were saying earlier about Shaq and his tendency in his losses to get destroyed, swept. And I think this is what you're seeing here with this Orlando team, whereas a guy like Bird, Magic, Jordan, these mentally tough players, Olajuwon, they can overcome this sort of thing. But this team, Orlando, they just didn't have that mental toughness to overcome adversity. And more than likely, you got Brian Hill, not a great coach, but
there's still time left. I didn't realize that. There's 0.3. I see what you're saying, Matt. I see what you're saying. But here's my counter. You brought up LeBron, right? Look, you can excuse Shaq because this is his third year in the league. You can excuse him for letting it get to him a little bit. LeBron's in he's like 5,000th year in the league, right? So he's been in the league for almost forever. Now, we saw, I don't know what happened there, just a deflection, I guess. We saw Kareem get eviscerated in the 85 finals, game 1. Comes back, kicks everyone's ass, ends up getting finals MVP. We saw Tragic Johnson. We saw Magic Johnson recover from that. We saw what was happening to Bird's Celtics in games 1 and games 3 of the 84 finals. He's able to come back and lead his team to the title. We saw Jordan lose game 1 against Magic in the 91 finals. We saw him lose game 1 against Utah Jazz in the 98 finals. Both were one was an overtime loss. The other one was a last second shot loss, or a last play shot. The last shot that went in that really cost him was the Perkins one. I'm not sure. No, it wasn't last shot because Jordan missed the potential game winner. We saw them come back and have the resiliency. We saw Hakeem Olajuwon and the Rockets. They were down 3-2 to the Knicks in the finals. We saw them come back. What happened with LeBron was completely unacceptable because he's been in the league forever, so he's a veteran. He should be able to take those punches because you're not always going to be able to just, unless you're Mike Tyson, you can't just get away with that. And when somebody does punch you in the back, whether it's, who was that guy that beat him?
Buster Douglas?
Buster Douglas or Evander Holyfield or whoever, or Lennox Lewis. There's going to come a time when you, as Mike Tyson himself said, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face.
Yep.
And the J.R. Smith play, look, yeah, I know he screwed up by dribbling the ball out, but if J.R. Smith doesn't get that rebound, then Golden State gets that rebound and Golden State has a chance to win it. At least with J.R. Smith getting that rebound, even though he screwed up, he prevented Golden State from winning in regulation.
And plus, he had a big guy like right in front of him. I don't know if it was Durant or somebody that, it's not like he was wide open.
And also, there was 5 seconds on the clock. When they saw him dribbling backwards towards half court, why not call a timeout? They had a timeout.
That would have been a good time.
So it's not all on J.R. Smith. I'm not going to allow that excuse to fly, not just with you, but a lot of people listening have said that was the reason why LeBron checked out of the finals. There's no excuse when you weigh all that up. Now, if LeBron was in his first or his third year or his first year in the finals and something like that happened, like you saw with Nick Anderson, I can understand it to a point. But
this isn't the first time he's. Yes,
there is a proven track record of him being accused of quitting on his team, especially when he's in Cleveland. But Matt, we have. This is the pilot. It is done. How do you feel?
Oh, it's great.
Tired?
No, not at all.
All right, cool. We can go on to game 2. You got game 2?
Sure.
Just
kidding,
man.
Let's do it.
I'm just kidding. What were your thoughts on that? Like, you knew the outcome of this game. What were your thoughts after watching back? Is there anything you picked up on?
Yeah, I mean, we think of the Nick Anderson collapse. That's really the story of this game. But that's such a small portion, and they were still right there. You know, they had the 3D time